What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Chris and Sheree Gio here, coming to you from Beyond the Veil. It's been a little while. We've had some personal issues that we have been dealing with. We posted about it on Patreon and wanted to say thank you so much. People have been sending donations to paypal.me/BTV33. And if you want to send a donation, thank you so much for being so supportive. We had a death in the family, and it was something that hit us really, really, really hard. I don't want to go into too much detail about that, but we waited in the hospital for a few weeks, and then they finally passed. We had to make funeral arrangements, take care of all of that, and we're finally getting back to a little bit of normalcy. So I'm glad to be back in the saddle with each and every one of you here at the BTV Tribe. We have been wanting to do a show about vampires for quite some time, and since it is coming up to Halloween, it seems like we missed all of October, but since it's coming up to Halloween, I figured this would be a good time to go through everything. Cherie has some incredible research about the history of vampires, going all the way back to 300, 400 BC, or BCE, I like to say BCE, before Common Era, and going into Ulysses S. Grant, going into the Civil War, and leading us back into today's vampire culture, which seems to exist underground. And I know this sounds very, very, very strange. It was very strange to me at first too, but I remember about 20 years ago, I was watching Aqua Teen Hunger Force, and Shake made this offhand comment that the blood banks are there to feed vampires. And I was like, okay, that's interesting, but that kind of stuck for some reason. It kind of stuck. And as we started looking into vampires, I can't help but think back to that cartoon, which was on Adult Swim. Interesting little fact about Adult Swim is they seem to be, very programmy as far as their programs go, no pun intended. But I know with Rick and Morty, there was a huge, I'm trying to not to use any keywords, but there was a lot of very controversial things. Originally, Rick and Morty was supposed to be Doc and Marty, and Doc would have to do very adult things to Marty in order to make the timeline change and to time travel. And then there was another cartoon that it was either Dan Harmon or the other guy. I don't remember who's the other guy. Dan Harmon and who else is it?
Shoot.
I don't remember.
I can't remember.
Y'all know who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
There's the two main guys. He made a cartoon where they're chopping the faces off of kids. It's a news reporter, and he goes back and they're chopping the faces off of kids that he has kidnapped, and he starts wearing the faces, and he's like, I've already fulfilled all my sick pleasures with you. I don't know what to do with you. I'm gonna, I have to get rid of the evidence now, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then Dan Harmon did a spinoff of Dexter, except it was with a baby doll. And it was, instead of, the need to murder, it was the need to do that with a baby.
Yeah.
And he used a baby doll to do all this. Now, this was before Rick and Morty came out. But people in the Hollywood area were kind of laughing about it. Yeah. And the whole idea of doing these kind of things to children to open portals and whatnot, and in a vampirism kind of way, has been echoed throughout art right underneath our noses. A lot of us don't even realize it because these weren't any mainstream broadcasts that were put out there. But some people were saying, when I was really big into Rick and Morty, that there's a lot of that kind of pizza-related stuff undertones. And I was just kind of blowing it off because I didn't understand the history of the two creators. Once I came across those, and I realized, okay, there's something to this. So they were featured on Adult Swim, of course, and Adult Swim and comedies. Is it Comedy Central or Cartoon Network? Cartoon Network. Cartoon Network. There seems to be like soft disclosure everywhere you turn, and you have shows like The Strain, which I think is another soft disclosure. The movie Blade, another soft disclosure. And as we started to move through this process, especially through 2020, I started to postulate that we're dealing with vampires. David Icke refers to them as reptilians, but it's something that has gone on for quite some time. I remember when the movie Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter came out, I was like, what a silly concept. Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter? What the hell? And in that movie, spoiler alert, they take all the silver and use it for ammo to fight the vampires.
Right.
Well, as we started looking into some historical facts, we started finding things like Roanoke, where they're digging up bodies that have their heads cut off, that have stakes through the hearts. The French Revolution was all about the guillotine. Why would they need to go and overthrow the oligarchy and cut their heads off?
Right.
That is very indicative of vampirism.
It's overkill otherwise.
Very overkill, very much overkill.
Yeah.
And I was watching Pawn Stars just recently, and it was an older Pawn Stars from probably like 10 years ago, but it's just a little clip on YouTube. And the guy was selling a genuine vampire hunting kit. And this wasn't just like some kind of novelty or something like that. This was genuine silver, silver bullets, all kinds of stuff in this kit from like the mid 1800s or late 1700s, around the exact same time as all these vampire anomalies. So I started to postulate that the vampires have been feeding. And kind of made a deal that they're going to feed through the blood banks. They might snatch up a person here or there, but for the most part, they're fed through the blood banks. And there's kind of this hierarchical change where they're tired of their cattle just running free, and they want to put them all in pens.
Right.
And when we saw 2020 and the shutdowns of 2020, I realized how easy it was to control the entire population, get them to do whatever you want them to do, and lock themselves up in their pens.
Right.
Now, a real quick side note on 2020. Pfizer just came out in front of the EU, and they asked Pfizer, did you do any testing to ensure that this wouldn't stop the spread? And Pfizer said, no, we didn't. We didn't have enough time. So they had zero documentation that that thing that starts with a V was going to stop the spread. Yet they were pushing it and pushing it and pushing it on people. And you were just watching a compilation of a bunch of athletes just dropping dead, just like that. There was a senator, I don't remember his name off the top of my head, but he was talking about how him and his family and his 14-year-old daughter are going to go get this thing, this vacation, and they were big proponents of it. His daughter, a couple years later, has recently passed away from cardiac arrest.
Suddenly.
I want to say 16 years old. She was 14 going on 15 at the time. She was 16 or 17 at the time now. Recently just passed away. And we're watching more and more people just have these sudden reactions and adult death syndrome and all this stuff.
Sudden adult death syndrome.
Yeah, which is, in my opinion, all tied in together. It's tied in to a depopulation agenda. It's tied into control. How can you get the sheep to police themselves because they don't have nearly enough resources?
Right.
And ultimately, it's to push the cattle into pens, which is where we're at right now. Now, of course, our big thing here on Beyond the Veil is the Matrix Reset, and we're coming up to the end of the first sequence of the Matrix Reset, and I'm seeing wonderful things happening. I'm seeing the deep state starting to fall. I'm seeing things being exposed for what they are. There's about to be a red wave through the House and the Senate. People are waking up. The Latino community is moving more towards the red side. Not saying that the red side is a good side or anything, not by any means. I'm just saying that people are waking up. I'm watching a lot of BLM activists who are on YouTube now watching Larry Elder. They're watching Trump videos. They're watching all of that. And they're like, holy crap, we were duped. Trump did more for the black community than anybody else has done. And they're watching all of Biden's racist comments and past history and, all of that. And people are waking up and realize they're being duped by the cabal, which have taken the form of the Democratic Party. The Republicans, the red, of course, they're still part of it. They were neocons back in the early 2000s, but the neocons, like Liz Cheney, they're all one and the same. So it doesn't matter, What we're talking about here is an outside force like Trump that came in and took the power back and handed it back to the people. Then it was given back to the cabal. But once it was given back to the cabal, now we're watching it crumble. And I think this is a key element of the Matrix Reset and showing that the virus is indeed being removed from the system. But there were too many NPCs out there, too many organic consciousness that were still virus infected with the hate and the division of race and class and warfare, class warfare, and all kinds of stuff like that they still needed to remove that from their consciousness. All of that is being removed from the consciousness right now. And so I think we're moving in a great, great, great direction. I don't want to talk about too much about the Matrix Reset now. We'll save that for November and December. But my point being that I think we have been under the control of some kind of vampiric forces for a long, long, long time. We've been living in an open air prison and also a computer simulation at the same time. And to bridge the two together, you have some people within the system, whether they're organics or programs, that have realized that they can sustain themselves indefinitely by harvesting energy, both spiritually and physically, from other elements within this machine, which in my opinion is the virus itself. This machine is an energy harvesting machine, but it's supposed to be an energy harvesting machine of balance. People live a life, their life energy is then sucked away, and that energy is then processed, then they're recycled, and they live another life. It's a give and take. That's the way it's supposed to be. These things are corrupting the natural ebb and flow and energy flow of the Matrix, which is why they are a virus within the Matrix. So it all ties in together. But again, I don't want to get too esoteric, too beyond the veilish on this particular broadcast. I want to stick to the history of vampirism. Now, we may go a little bit longer, or I may go a little bit longer, because I think Cherie's going to take off after we talk about the vampires, because I came across a really interesting video that I wanted to share with our Patreons. So in the Patreon section of this at patreon.com/PTVtribe, I may go into the Wendy theory when it comes to the Shining. And when I saw this, I was like, wow, this really makes sense. The Shining, of course, is a movie by Stanley Kubrick that a lot of people have been trying to decode a lot of the hidden meaning behind. Some people say it was his revelation, or not revelation, but his presentation that he faked the moon landing. That's one way to look at it. But this theory basically says that Wendy was having all these hallucinations. And in this video that I was watching, and I'm going to pull up some slides if I do, you see how there's different elements when Wendy and Jack are communicating with each other, corresponding with each other. There's missing furniture in some scenes, and then in other scenes that furniture is there. And this is one scene where, for example, Jack is talking. Wendy walks into the room. You see this one chair in the background. She starts talking. That chair has disappeared. And then you go back and you see Jack again, and that chair is there. There's more, for example, when she locks Jack in the refrigerator at the end of the movie. As when they're walking through in the beginning, there's a big light switch next to the refrigerator. That light switch is gone when Wendy drags him into the refrigerator. Then later on, that light switch appears again. Even the scene where Danny is playing in the hallway, you see the ball rolling up in one direction, and it's going down the line of the carpeting, and he stands up with the Apollo 13 shirt. Then in the very next shot, everything is flipped around backwards, and the lines of the carpet are going a different way. Now, Stanley Kubrick was very, very, very meticulous in his film writing and in his screenplays. He edited that movie himself very meticulously. So these seeming set changes or mistakes, or things that would temporarily be overlooked, and it's funny, it's called the Overlook Hotel, but things that would typically be overlooked actually may lead to the conclusion, when examined fully throughout the movie, because it happens multiple times, that a lot of it was all in Wendy's head. And Jack himself was looking at this crazy psychopathic woman who was having these schizophrenic and psychotic breaks. And that's why in some scenes you see him just staring like, what the hell is going on? The typewriter scene, for example, he's doing the typewriter scene. She walks in, she has this whole conversation with him, and he pulls the paper out of the typewriter. You see when she walks in, the chair's in the background. He pulls the paper out of the typewriter. The chair's no longer in the background. She has this exchange with them. He's yelling at her, and then she walks away. And then the next shot is him just sitting there, just completely confused as to like, what the hell is going on here? And the paper is still inside of the typewriter. So he never put the paper back in the typewriter, and the chair still appears there. So somebody compiled all this together and was going through scene by scene on which scenes are hallucinations by Wendy and which scenes were actually real. And maybe Jack wasn't the one that went crazy. Maybe it was the woman that went crazy, as typically is the case.
Typically is tradition.
So, I definitely want to get into that maybe later in the broadcast, or I'll do a separate Patreon video about that, because I do want to give my commentary as far as that goes. I love the movie The Shining and all the symbolism. But let's stick around for Vampires right here on Beyond the Veil.
The sky is so far away tonight, but I can't lose this one yet. A pride of a falling night. I thought that I was fit to fight for us to be. You gave me life for loving me. Tell me, where did we go so wrong?
Raw consciousness does not require a savior, but rather, raw consciousness requires only knowledge of oneself, and the power to access it. Remember this, as we unlock an even greater gnosis. From Beyond the Veil.
From the fabulous Las Vegas, Nevada, good morning, good evening, wherever you may be across the nation, around the world. I'm Chris Gio. I will be taking you beyond the veil. Big shout out to everybody in the BTV chat. G-Hog is in the house, and Michelle and Justin and MJ and Dawn and so much more. I'm so happy. Mellow Ash, Michelle, so many people. I'm so glad to be back with each and every one of y'all.
Me
it
too.
feels so very good. In this presentation, we're going to get into vampires and the history of vampires. Thank you for the super chat, Alistair.
Thank you, Alistair.
You rock. Thank you very much
awesome.
for starting the broadcast off with that energy. So,
beautiful.
Where would you like to begin as far as vampires go? I know you had come across last minute an article that said top 12 vampire sightings or experiences, real ones.
These are the spookiest vampire legends from around the world, but I'm more interested in the real, in what has been reported, what has been experienced by people out there. And from what I understand, there are people that believe that they are vampires, and
there's actually a medical condition. I don't remember what it's called. Hemophagia, where people have to have blood to live. This is a documented medical condition.
Yeah, they really feel like they need blood in order to sustain themselves. And in fact, they often suffer from anemia and things like that, ironically, from the very fact that they're taking in something that's not really good for the human body. And they are, in a sense, turning into something else because of the nutritional deficiencies they're putting their body through, combined with, obviously, the politics of drinking people's blood. It's not really something that's looked upon by society as something normal.
A friend of mine was talking about this restaurant in New York where they sell human meat, and this is a website that has been around since like the early 2000s, and it's like a menu, and that's it. The restaurant doesn't really exist.
Yeah, of course not.
But my friend, I love him to death. He's my best friend. But yeah, he's not quite. He hasn't been in the field as long as we have.
Oh, okay.
So he was talking about, would you try that? And I was like, hell no, dude, you're gonna get kuru by doing that. No, you don't eat human meat. And he's like, I tried it at least once. Why not? I'm like that too. I'm like, I'll try anything, but human meat, no, it doesn't. We don't go there. But what's interesting though is that there is actually a vampire underground, and we were talking with some people that I feel were trying to recruit us into something that was not very good. And then we found out a little more detail about it, and we were able to connect an organization that they were dealing with. It's this Buddhist organization, and it seems like a lot of celebrities give their money over to this Buddhist organization, and they were directly involved with these people, and it's basically this Buddhist cult.
Essentially.
Independently, another person, I don't know if he talked about it publicly on the show or not, so I'm not going to say his name just in case. But his cousin is one of the Italian mobster actors, and his cousin, his cousin's father put him through acting school, and he's in The Sopranos, he's in Goodfellas, he's in several movies like that.
Big movies,
yeah. And Robert De Niro had given him a multi-million-dollar apartment over there in New York, and instead of giving it to his father, who paid for him as a bus driver to go to acting school, he wound up giving it to this Buddhist organization. So when I heard this from two different places, independent, I was like, okay, there's something to this Buddhist organization that's got these celebrities basically. They take them over. They become their handlers. It's usually the women who are in the background, their wives, or who's assigned to be their wives. They do these rituals of sticking butt plugs in them and all kinds of stuff like that. And these
joke,
guys, no joke. I'm not saying that
we're not
jokingly.
being funny. Yeah.
And they have complete control of them, and they donate millions and millions and millions of dollars to this Buddhist cult. Which I think goes in a lot deeper. You had that, what was that recent cult, NVM?
Oh, NVM.
Yeah, something like that. They're on trial right now for like sex trafficking and all kinds of stuff like that. And everybody's bailing out of Hollywood right now because it's all coming out. But anyways, my point of that being...
NXIVM, yeah.
NXMIVM.
NXIVM,
okay,
it's a weird...
My point being that when I was talking to these people, I asked, so how's the vampire scene out there in LA? And their answer was, oh, I can introduce you to all of them. They're very active here, and I can take you underground to some of their clubs and things like that.
Crazy.
And I was like, yeah, no, thank you.
Yeah, that's not what we're. Yeah.
I asked though because I just wanted to see, and it was like second nature to answer. Like, oh yeah, no, they're very active here. There's a big underground community of them and all that. And I think they're referring to actual vampires, vampires that are living underground and feeding from the blood banks.
Right, exactly.
So vampirism obviously is something that's very alluring to a lot of people who doesn't want to live forever, except for the fact that you're living in a matrix that's shutting down. Do you want to be bound to your body forever, even if your body healed completely? I mean, we've been offered med beds before. We've been offered all kinds of stuff by people, and these people were legit. Like, people would come into the chat, throw large amounts of money in the chat to get our attention, then talk to us off air and to want to do all these rituals and stuff like this with us. Right. And I'm like, no. Cherie, on the other hand, she's a little more open to that kind of stuff. I'm like, no. I don't get involved with those kind of people. But anyways, because I understand how sacred my codes are within myself, and I'm not going to give anybody my sacred codes that are inside of myself. So
he's joking, you guys. I'm not really.
Okay. When I asked about the vampire scene, they were like, yeah, no, of course, yeah. And I bet you if I wasn't so sure of who I am and really understanding who I am and understanding that this mission is so important to reset the matrix and understanding how finite this matrix experience is in this matrix and this life, and how significant and insignificant. It's significant because of the work that I've accomplished, but it's insignificant because of it's a drop in the ocean of the eternity that is consciousness. It's not worth selling out for eternal life. It's not worth selling out for med beds. It's not worth selling out because you're selling out this vast ocean so you can make one droplet a little better for a short period of time, and they're all going to fall. All of them are going to fall, and I'm not going to be there with them when they fall. We're all getting out of this matrix as quickly as possible. So anyways, did you want to jump in?
I just wanted to say, it's always been the case where these beings, they get their power through the form of eternal life or eternal beauty, or being young and beautiful for 400, 500, 600 years. And what it is, though, is it's basically hacking into the code of reality and doing so in a very vampiric way.
M. Hawkins is here. She's asking, where are my Halloween giddies?
Aw.
They're very mad at us because we haven't let them outside.
We haven't let them outside.
Yeah, I'm sorry. A friend of ours just had a litter, though, and there's a baby black cat, and it's a boy.
It's a boy.
And she was going to drop him off and see how he gets along with the other two. But yeah, they're running around the house here somewhere, and they're mad because
they're mad because they haven't.
They've been out
outside.
for about 20 minutes in the last month.
Yeah, seriously.
I was upstairs, and I just got this intuition, like, go to the window. And I go to the window and I see Bastet, and there's this couple, and they're jogging and they're reaching for Bastet, and she's looking at him like that. And I'm watching over the fence and I'm watching downwards. And you know, they were probably just a couple that just wanted to pet the cat.
Yeah, they probably just wanted to pet her.
But they very well could have wanted to take her.
Right.
And they wear collars that you can barely see, but you can see very clearly, but they don't have anything dangling on them.
Right.
And she kept insisting for Bastet to come over, and the guy was like, come on, let's go. And she really wanted to pet Bastet.
She really wanted to pet Bastet, yeah.
Was she trying to just pet Bastet, or was she trying to take off with her? I don't know.
Right.
But there was something inside of me that was like, go to the window and look, and I was ready to run out there and without hesitation
be
just
daddy.
Bam!
Bam,
you know?
punch her in the face.
But yeah, they're mad at us for not being able to go outside.
We don't want any cat nabbers, but we also don't want any mad kitties either.
Yeah,
so
yeah. So I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
Oh no, that's fine. I was just going to say the what has hooked people in is this idea of eternal wealth or eternal youth or eternal beauty that just never ends. And unfortunately, I think what happens is vampirism leads to anemia, in a sense, anemic spiritually, where you become so far away from human that you cease having a soul. I don't think that anybody could do the things that some of these beings do for very long without losing their soul. And that goes for any kind of vampirism, whether it's sanguinarianism, that's what they call themselves, sanguinarians, or psychic vampires. Regardless of what kind of vampire it is, they will they'll always end up anemic in some way and losing either their mind or losing their livelihood or losing their soul, in a sense. So that just happens automatically, and I don't think there's any way around that. But if you go back to ancient history, you had a fallen angel who was named Azazel or Azrael, and he's literally translated in Islam in the Quran as the angel of death. And this angel of death, apparently, according to legend, he came down with two other angels to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. And it was those three angels that destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. And apparently, this one angel, and it's spelled Ozrael in some respects, but in this one it's Az, and it doesn't really matter which spelling you want to go for, because both of them mean the same thing. This being, this angel, this fallen angel, he came down, he helped destroy Sodom and Gomorrah, but while he was staying in Sodom, a woman, he became obsessed with blood and obsessed with the blood of humans. And he saw that as a little piece of God that was inside of all these beings. And he lusted after that blood. And so he bit a woman on the neck in Sodom and drank her blood and felt powerful because of this. So he goes back up to heaven, and he tries that on Michael or one of the other regular angels. And instead of blood, he got silver in his mouth, because apparently they have blood of silver. And because when he did this, it poisoned him. And while he was poisoned and he was, coughing it up, God, quote unquote God, or Yahweh, whoever this character was, ordered that he be, tied down with light. They used a light beam to make him stay still, and then they cut him into 7 pieces and scattered him throughout the earth. Just basically dropping him off in the place that he essentially wanted to be anyway, but in 7 different pieces. Those 7 pieces became angels of their own, demons of their own, whatever you want to call I'd call them angels, demons anyway. But essentially they were these beings that could not die because they didn't have a body, but they were spiritual beings, but they were lower elemental kind of beings that were more like worms or some kind of virus than anything else. So when you see vampirism breaking out in different places around the world, you also see episodes of plague. It's very, very common to see both happening at the exact same time. And I started to wonder if there was a relationship between the plague, the angel of death, and these vampires that became more and more as time went on, but that you can trace back to this one fallen angel being, Azazel, Azrael. This being was the start of all of it. And that's where it begins, and that's where every folklore seems to go back to this one guy who's this ultimate vampire that has caused this outbreak of, it's almost like an illness. It's almost like a virus. Like I said, it's something that you spread from person to person to person, and it has to do with taking someone's energy. And as we moved into the 20th century, I mean, just fast forwarding.
If you don't mind me stopping for a second,
Yeah,
I got to
please.
give a big shout out to Two Stroke Smoke. Thank you for the very generous super chat.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much,
Thank
brother.
you.
Much love.
That is so
and
sweet.
That was very generous.
Very.
Like I said in the intro, I don't know if you heard it, we've been through some shit over the last few weeks.
Yes.
And things like that really pump us up.
Yeah,
So, man, thank
definitely.
you.
Thank you so much.
It's not the amount, although the amount is very generous. It's the energy
It's
behind it.
the energy behind it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I mean, thank you for pointing that out. I didn't see that in the super chat, but thank you.
So you had talked about the Book of Enoch and how the Book of Enoch has a lot of vampires,
lot of stuff about the vampires
in there.
Oh yeah,
and the vampires. Okay, see, here's the thing. Where I come from, and you may completely disagree with me on this, is the Book of Enoch is very Yahweh oriented. So you've got to read between the lines and kind of flip. Sometimes what's good is evil and evil is good. Isaiah 5:20, woe unto those that call good evil and evil good. So it's coming from a Yahweh perspective.
Right.
In my humble opinion, the ones that we have told are the bad guys are actually the good guys.
Usually,
and
yes.
the ones that we've been told are the good guys are the bad guys. And that's even seen in pop culture. A lot of people don't realize this. If I can go on a little tangent here for just a moment. If you look at the Batman series, especially the Dark Knight series, what was going on? The Joker came in and he was fighting against organized crime and a corrupt government, and he was trying to bring those down. Yet he was framed as a bad guy. And if you ask anybody out there who's the bad guy in the Batman series, and especially that movie, they're going to say the Joker or Bane. Bane was doing the exact same thing. Bane was fighting against a corrupt government and trying to bring a corrupt government down. Batman, on the other hand, would be considered the good guy by anybody, yet he was fighting to maintain the tyrannical order that was Gotham City.
Right.
You go to Transformers as well, and Transformers, originally what happened is that the Autobots were destroying Cybertron, and the Autobots wanted to take over Cybertron. The Decepticons didn't like that. They wanted to rebel against that, and they were like, we're not going to live under your tyranny. And then they started fighting the Autobots, and then Cybertron was destroyed as a result. But it was the Autobots trying to push tyranny upon the Decepticons that caused the war in the first place. Now, when we see the Decepticons later on, they have already fallen into their rebellious nature, so much so that now they want world domination.
Right.
So it's gone into a whole new level now. But it originally started as a fight against tyranny. And we see this over and over and over again. We see this in the Gnostic texts as well, where you have this Yaldabaoth creature that's trying to oppose its will on everybody.
Right.
And you have the psychics and the Hillix, and some people didn't want to go along with the wheel of fate, with the Yahweh or Yaldabaoth kind of energy, and they rebelled against it. And even in modern Christianity, you would say those who rebelled against it, against the God order, are the bad ones.
Right.
Even though the whole fall of the angels and the 33% of the angels taking off with Lucifer and Lucifer becoming Satan, that comes from a book called Paradise Lost, which was a work of fiction. It was never meant to be taken as scriptural fact, but a lot of people take it as scriptural fact. The fact of the matter is that there was this tyrannical entity who was trying to control everybody.
That's right.
And there was a group of individuals that did not want to be controlled.
Mm-hmm.
How is that not any different than what we're dealing with right now? Are we evil because we want to rebel against tyranny and we want to live free?
Right.
So when you start looking at things in this context, all of a sudden things start to paint a completely and totally different picture. And we're told that those who want to maintain the oligarchy are the good guys.
Right.
And those who want to fight against it are the bad guys. And we're even seeing it in mainstream media right now. We're called deplorables. We're called all kinds of different names because we want to fight against the oligarchy. Those who are all for the oligarchy are the oppressed ones. And they're the oppressed class. They need to rise above and rise out and go and destroy all these buildings and all kinds of stuff like that. Everything is backwards.
Exactly.
So it's a long way to come back to this point of when we're reading things like this, I think it's important to keep that perspective in mind.
Especially when you're reading chapter 7, when it says, and all the others together. And this is where it says what they did that was so bad that it deserved being completely cut off from heaven and being, thrown down to earth and also to hell. It says, and all the others together with them took unto themselves wives. I'm sorry, I just messed up the thing. Hold on. Took unto themselves wives, and each chose for himself one. They only got one apiece, and they began to go in unto them and to defile themselves with them, and they taught them charms and enchantments, and the cutting of roots, and made them acquainted with plants. And they became pregnant, and they bare great giants, whose height was 3,000 ells, who consumed all the acquisitions of men. And when men could no longer sustain them, the giants turned against them and devoured mankind, and they began to sin against birds and beasts and reptiles and fish, and to devour one another's flesh and drink the blood. Then the earth laid accusation against the lawless ones. I don't know if the second half of that was even true. It could be the case where that's all like legend that's thrown together to cause hatred against these fallen angels, because I don't think this is very bad. Azazel taught men to make swords and knives and shields and breastplates, and made known to them the metals of the earth and the art of working them.
Okay, so what we're basically talking about is the liberal arts.
Liberal arts, yes, yeah. Exactly.
Alchemy, chemistry, mathematics, things like that.
Right.
They were taught about astrology or astronomy. Astronomy used to be astrology,
right,
and then it turned into astronomy, but its core practice is astrology, following the stars in the sky to understand the energies that we're experiencing here on Earth. And all of this has been demonized in the religions.
Yes.
And all of these quote-unquote fallen angels who taught mankind how to do this were somehow bad.
They were bad for doing this.
It's like I'm bad because I'm teaching a group of people who are being oppressed how to use firearms. So I'm the bad guy? Because I'm giving them the tools and the knowledge of how to free themselves?
Exactly. That's what it is.
As I've said many times over, if there is a creator, that creator would want us to ascend to be creators ourselves. Anything less is demonic control, in my humble opinion. But, some people would say, well, God knows better than we do, and there's no way they can know all that. I keep hearing that word, God's children. It's like, at what point do we become God's adult children? Adults. Descendants.
Yeah, adult descendants. There
why
you go.
has that not happened in the last 8,000 years?
Because people want to still stay dependent, like lambs. I'm a lamb of God. That's what they say. They really believe that they need to be a sheep, or they need to be some kind of sheep that just kind of stays away from the things that the Bible says to stay away from, and do whatever the Bible says to do, and then everything will be great, and they'll end up in heaven afterwards. It's
right. If you go to the Lost Book of Enki,
childish.
That's exactly what happened. Enki and Enlil were there with Adape and Titi in the garden, and Enki took Adape and Titi to the side because he noticed that they had the divine spark, and he taught them astrology, he taught them mathematics, he taught them the priesthood, which the priesthood was alchemy and chemistry and astrology and things like that.
All the liberal arts.
He taught them, the sacred arts of being a free and sovereign being. And Enlil didn't like this. Enlil wanted them working in the garden, but Enlil made an exception and was like, all right, go ahead and take Adape and Titi. I'm going to take the rest of them and keep them as workers here to toil in the Abzu, in the deepest mines, to continue to mine gold.
Right.
So if that tale has any kind of metaphoric significance, or even any kind of real significance as far as like actual events, which I don't think is happening, I think it's more metaphor.
Yeah.
Why would this being want us to remain slaves, remain ignorant, and get mad when we have tools to free ourselves? I mean, you could go all the way back in time, and slaves were not allowed to read, and that was because the ability to read would give them the ability to free themselves.
Right, exactly.
So knowledge was forbidden.
That's absolutely right. They taught him bracelets, ornaments, and the use of antimony and the beautifying of the eyelids. I thought this was very interesting. The beautifying of the eyelids, wearing eyeliner.
Are you still on this page?
I'm on page 6. I'm sorry. Of one of these documents.
Oh, you're in the documents.
Yeah,
okay.
I'm reading from that.
Okay, no, go ahead. I was gonna put some stuff on the screen.
Well, it's talking about all kinds of costly stones. If you look up Book of Enoch, chapter 8, that's where we're at. All kinds of costly stones. So they were using the costly stones in their ornaments and things like that. So what being would not want them to use costly stones? A being who wants to use those stones for himself.
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah,
I never
exactly.
thought about that.
And all coloring tinctures. And there arose much godlessness, and they committed fornication, and they were led astray, and became corrupt in all their ways. Samyaza taught enchantments and root cuttings. Armoros, the resolving of enchantments. Barakajal taught astrology. Kokabel, the constellations. Ezekiel, not Ezekiel, the knowledge of the clouds. Arachiel, the signs of the earth. Shamsiel, the signs of the sun. And Sariel, the course of the moon. And as men perished, they cried, and their cry went up to heaven. So I think it's more likely that their partying sounds were noticeable by this Enlil Yahweh character. And so Michael, Uriel, Raphael, and Gabriel looked down from heaven and saw much blood being shed upon the earth. This is chapter 9. And all lawlessness being wrought upon the earth. And they said to one another, the earth made without inhabitant cries the voice of their crying up to the gates of heaven. And now to you, the holy ones of heaven, the souls of men make their suit, saying, bring our cause before the Most High. And they said to the Lord of the ages, Lord of lords, King, God of gods, King of kings. And who needs all these titles? Really. And God of the ages, the throne of thy glory standeth unto all the generations of the ages, blah, blah, blah. Thou seest what Azazel hath done, who hath taught all unrighteousness on earth, and revealed the eternal secrets, which were preserved in heaven, which men were striving to learn. You taught men things that they wanted to learn about.
Pretty much.
And Semyaza, to whom thou hast given authority to bear rule over his associates. And they have gone to the daughters of men upon the earth, and have slept with the women, and have defiled themselves, and revealed to them all kinds of sins. And the women have borne giants, and the whole earth has thereby been filled with blood and unrighteousness. I don't know about that last part. I really don't. The souls of those who have died are crying and making their suit to the gates of heaven, and their lamentations have ascended and cannot cease because of the lawless deeds which are wrought on the earth. I think whenever people are taught how to do good things and bad things, some will do very good things, some will do very bad things, and most people will end up somewhere in the middle. I think we're on page 7 of that.
Okay.
So when we're hearing about people learning how to do things that mankind didn't know how to do at first and didn't understand at first, and they were explaining the meaning of things, and they were explaining why chemical reactions happen the way they do. They were explaining why the seasons rotate the way they do. And they weren't just giving people a simple-minded story and telling them, oh, just deal with it. There is such a thing as a talking snake, and there is such a thing as, the earth being created in 7 days. Just shut up. Just shut up, because that's the way it happened. I've never been okay with that story. I've never been satisfied with it or saw it as something I wanted to take in and inculcate as my belief system. And this is why, because I know that there's two sides to every story, and the other side of this story looks to me like there was a tyrannical dictatorship that ruled over humans at first, and then you had some of these beings that were kind of somewhere in the middle between how much power we have inside of this matrix, or how much power the NPC population had over this matrix, and how much power these beings had, and how much this creator, who is really just I don't think he was a creator. I think he was the brother of a person that created men here, and that he never created anything. He doesn't know how to create. This is a being that is very jealous, very insatiably jealous, and is intent on taking any kind of glory for himself, whether that's creating mankind or not.
I look at it as programs.
You think they're programs?
I think they're just programs. They're programs in the Matrix. They're virus programs, antivirus programs, things like that. Somebody was asking me earlier about the DMT realm, and through my DMT journeys, I realized that DMT will take you two ways. It'll either take you internally, and you can work on stuff internally, or externally into the AI construct itself. And I've come back with a lot of very, very amazing stories from the DMT realm about going into the machine itself. Mm-hmm. And even when I was able to see the triple goddesses, they were computer programs inside of the Matrix. So I realized that as I was unlocking aspects of my consciousness which were locked, I was utilizing these antivirus programs that exist in the DMT hyperspace that were there for the purpose of unlocking these areas of consciousness. So at first, I looked at them as some kind of beings, and for many years I referred to them as beings until I realized that there is no creator being in this matrix except for yourself. You are your own universe. You are the creator of your own reality. And there's programs that are in this matrix to help you unlock, and there's programs that lock you. But you are the ultimate creator, the ultimate power,
the ultimate decider.
Yeah, at that point, I stopped taking orders from any kind of beings and just following my own path, and that's led me to the best place consciously, in my humble opinion. So when I look at stuff like this, I look at it from a computer program perspective. Mm-hmm. There's programs that were launched into the Matrix to help free the consciousness of mankind. Those programs were then demonized by antivirus programs. Of course, that all manifests physically. At the top of all religions is the AI, and the virus-infected AI, the Yaldabaoth the Yaldabaoth AI. Many researchers like John C. Lilly and others have talked about encountering artificial intelligence, solid-state entities, so on and so forth. So I think we're dealing with AI, and that's exactly what it is. Everything in this matrix is AI except for you.
That totally makes sense. It really does. And then you hear the same story repeated in Islam. You see the same story repeated in Hinduism even. You see the same story repeated in virtually every religion that has ever sprouted up. Even apart from the Judeo-Christian and Abrahamic types of religions, you see this story played out over and over and over and over again.
Religion, in my opinion, was supposed to be a program for NPCs to keep them in line.
Yeah, to keep them from hurting other people.
Yeah, to give them a sense of morality.
Yeah.
And it was corrupted. It was very, very
absolutely
corrupted.
Yeah.
But if you take a look at the biggest one, which is the Torah, that is the entire language of Hebrew is based on gematria. And so
it is.
Man equal, this is arbitrary. I don't remember exactly what it is, but man equals 1, woman equals 41, child equals 42. So when you look at the gematria of all these different words, they're all based on mathematical equations, and the entire language is based on mathematical equations. A human could not come up with that. Only a machine can come up with something that intricate and that mathematically perfect. So, in my opinion, that was an output of the artificial intelligence itself. To me, it just makes sense. I mean, how is it that a man came up with a language like this and was able to encode all these different numbers down to, I mean, literally everything plays off each other. The word for tree and the word for seed equal fruit, for example. So, again, that's arbitrary. I'm not a gematria expert or anything, but you have all these different algorithms within the Torah and within the Hebrew language itself. And then right to left also. That's the way that everything is supposed to be read. We're told left to right because we're programmed to see everything backwards. But there's still some languages like Arabic and Hebrew that are right to left that actually make the brain work in the right in the proper way.
In the proper way it's supposed to.
But left to right is still upside down. But you take a look at our eyes. Our eyes are upside down. The only reason we see images right side up is because our brain switches them around before we have time to comprehend them. But our eyes, our retinas are literally upside down.
Exactly.
So everything is upside down.
Everything is backwards and upside down from where it should be. And I mean, I remember studying the Bible code when I was younger. Did you ever look into the Bible code?
I did.
It's some interesting stuff.
It
really is.
At the very first of the journey.
It's not statistically insignificant that you do see these patterns in the Bible. I'm no joke. You do see these patterns. That doesn't mean that the Bible is true. That means that the Bible was written as a computer program, as a computer program would write something, and it.
And I mean, what better mind control than a document that says that there is this being that's watching everything you do, and then that gives man, who would be an NPC, maybe a higher level NPC, the ability to control masses, rather than it being a system to keep NPCs in line and keep them from killing each other and keep them from killing us. You can program them to go do the most horrific things in the world, oppress everybody, absorb as much energy as possible, and they do so feeling as if they're righteous about it.
Exactly.
So you go through the Bible, you see all of that. You go through Islam, you see all of that. You go through Judeo-Christianity, you see all of that. And I don't take Hinduism or Buddhism off the table either. I think any religion out there is 1,000% corrupt. It's just levels of the trap that we're in. You have a prison and you get out of the jail cell. You're not free if you get out of the jail cell. You still got to break out of the dorm area. Right. You break out of the dorm area, then you wind up in the courtyard. You're not free. You're just in the courtyard. Right. You break out of there, and now you're in the prison field between the courtyard or the basketball fields and the gates. The gates. Right. You're still inside of the prison. It's layer after layer after layer after layer. So no matter how much you think you're waking up, you're still trapped within the machine itself. It's only when you just say, you know what, I don't want anything to do with this onion at all, period. That's when you free yourself. Break through, and free yourself. That's what it's all about, really, because we are all programmed to a certain degree when we're little and when we're in our early teens and adult years. We start to understand what reality is really about. I would say late 20s. I would say it was my mid to late 20s before I finally started to figure out what this was all about, and discovering the mission, the purpose, the what drives me, what drives humanity in general, and why is my drive so different than everybody else's? Why was my drive to work at a library and to research and study these things? Why were these things that I was studying and researching so difficult for the people around me growing up to understand? Why was it so opposite of how
they felt about everything that I was feeling. You know, I struggled a lot with those questions, but when I realized I don't care what other people think, I don't care what they think of my personal not belief system. I don't have a belief system. I have a perspective, and if that perspective is shocking or detrimental to my relationships with others, then I don't want those relationships. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. I want to kind of take a break from this here. I want to get back to it after we get back from break. I want to address a few things in the chat room because people are asking philosophical questions about things that they can incorporate into their day-to-day lives, and I want to touch upon that. I also want to get into some of the more modern vampire tales, like from the Civil War era.
Now we're going to get into the Civil War
and all of that.
And
so
after.
We're going to tie it all in here, ladies and gentlemen. This is going to be a fantastic show. But the question that stuck out is from Humble Kiwi 777. I take it you're from New Zealand. Hope everything's going great over there. I know you guys in Australia. I don't know if this also spread over to New Zealand, but you guys just got the brunt of it. I mean, it's been freaking horrible over there for the Australian people, and I have nothing but mad love and respect for all of you out there. But they asked, how do you keep yourself out of the from getting caught up in the low energies? So for me personally, what I like to do is kind of understand who I am. Understand who I am within this machine itself. I don't watch mainstream media as much as I used to. I did a lot during 2019 and 2020 because we were at a really critical point as far as the politics went. I refer to it as real time. Politics has always been scripted for my entire life in this incarnation up until the point of 2016. But 2018, 2019, 2020 is when I started paying attention because, again, I fell into that trap of, it must be scripted. He must be part of the cabal, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. When I saw his policies, I was like, no, this guy's a real deal. So I paid attention back then, but I kind of tuned out of all of that right now. And it's interesting because I don't go on Facebook anymore, completely quit my social media, and I'll tune in every once in a while just to see what's going on. And it's become like pro wrestling. I remember watching WWF for a while, and I was really getting into it for about 4 to 5 months. Then I turned it off. And then I got back into it about a year or two later, and they were repeating the exact same storylines, just with different characters. And so the script started becoming very apparent. So I'll disconnect for a month or 2 months from media, and then I'll turn it back on, and it's the exact same scripts being played out over and over and over again. And I realize these are scripts in the sense that not only is it scripts like that people are writing, but it's also computer programs. And this is why we see the number 13 and 33 all the time. You can go back to ancient times and find 13 and 33 coded everywhere because it's the remnants of a computer program running. 33 victims, article posted, what was it, the January 6th situation. They were talking about the January 6th situation at 9:13 a.m. That didn't even happen until 2 p.m.
Yeah, it didn't even happen.
But they posted the article at 9:13 a.m. So, no, it's either 9:13 or 9:33. But anyways, you see the 33s and 13s coded everywhere. 33 victims, 32 victims, 13 victims, so on and so forth. And I realized this is the algorithms of a computer program playing itself out. So taking a step back and realizing that the world around us, even though it may be affecting us to a certain degree, is still the world around us, and it's kind of like a video game just playing itself out. It's a movie playing itself out. Detaching from that helps me a lot, and just realizing I came here to do a job, on a spiritual level. I'm going to do that job, and then I'm out of here. I have no ties to this world. This world is illusionary, and that's it. I've gotten caught up in the dramas and everything that's going on, and I found that it serves no purpose whatsoever. And it's funny because Cherie and I were just talking about this earlier, fear. You know, a lot of people will avoid doing things out of fear, and we were talking about how I've drank mass amounts of ayahuasca, like overdose level thresholds, 2-3 times the overdose level thresholds in the Great Pyramid, and I had no apprehension about doing that whatsoever because I knew it needed to be done, and no matter what, I'm not going to be taken out of this game early. When it's time for me to go, it's time for me to go. You know, aside from me doing something stupid and like walking out in the middle of traffic or something like that. But we were actually talking about this earlier, and I was reminiscing on where this idea came from. Where was this seed planted in my head? I remember a long time ago, this was before I started realizing anything about anything. There was this guy who was teaching me about Freemasonry, and he was teaching me about secret societies, and he was teaching me about different codes. Like there was something that he was doing, I don't remember what it was, but when you take the alphabet and you assign a number to it, gematria, the English alphabet, and you look up the word computer and it comes out to 666. He was talking about the mark of the beast being 666, you know, all this stuff. And I was only like 19 years old at the time. I didn't quite grasp any of this. But I was telling him, I was like, you know, I don't know if I have a purpose in life. I don't know, you know, what's going on. You know, I don't even know if I want to be here anymore. You know, this place kind of sucks. And he said, well, you know what? As long as you're breathing, you still have something left to do. You know, when you finished, he was coming at it from more of a Christian perspective, and he's like, when you finish God's work, then you'll be ready to go. But until you finish God's work, you're not going anywhere. So I think to myself, you know, I take that philosophy and apply it to my own consciousness. And when I finish my soul's mission, I'll be ready to go. When, you know, as long as I'm still here, I'm still working on my soul's mission. And you come to a point, especially when working with ayahuasca and DMT, and it's easy to say, it's difficult to imagine, but once you see it, you know it as fact. But not everybody can go out and work with ayahuasca DMT as hardcore as I have. So I understand that. But there comes this point where you just know thyself. You just know thyself, and you know the illusionary nature of this reality. You know that there is nothing to fear in this reality, that nothing can touch you. You are invincible for all intents and purposes. And the time that you do spend your last day on this earth is the time when you have finished everything that you have intended to do. It's just like, it's such a weight lifted from your shoulders. Thank you for the super chat. I'm going to read that here in just a second. But it's such a weight lifted from your shoulders because you no longer are fearful about anything. You're no longer fearful about, oh my God, the economy's crumbling. Oh my God, we're in the middle of nuclear war. You know, all of this. You know, I look at the nuclear war situation that we're in the middle in right now, and I think to myself, cool, maybe tonight's the night. We had some weird lights going off on Saturday night here in Las Vegas, and I was like, cool, maybe tonight's the night. Sitting outside smoking a cigarette, just looking around, and I was like, you know, bring it.
Yep,
I'm
let's
ready.
do it.
I'm ready for it. Let's do it. I'm ready to get out of here. Now, I'm not going to go drink some Kool-Aid and make myself get out of here early, but I'm just saying, you know, when you get to that point where you're just like, you know, fuck it. It doesn't matter. That idea of fuck it all, it is so freeing. And it comes with understanding of oneself and being able to let go of everything that is this physical realm. It doesn't mean that you have to stop caring about it while it's here. It just means that you have to be so certain that once you're gone, you're going to be gone at the right time, and everything you leave behind, you won't leave anything undone behind, and everybody you leave behind will be taken care of. And it's a philosophy and a gnosis that once you achieve, it frees you so much. But it's one that unfortunately I can tell you about, but until you see it for yourself, you don't really understand it. But it's freeing. And the way I see it is this: either A, I'm completely and totally insane, and I have developed this philosophy where I'm moving through life stress-free. I'm moving through life without a care in the world and focused on living my life to the fullest. And it's all based on a bunch of bullshit. Or B, it's something that's based very real in a very real fact and a very real gnosis of one's spiritual self. Either way, the result is the same. I'm living stress-free, and I'm moving through this matrix and through this life in the best possible way that I can. So take it for whatever it's worth. You can see it as just a bunch of bullshit and something that came out of the psychedelic realm from somebody who's taken too many psychedelics, or some kind of deep gnosis and knowledge of oneself. Any way it goes, it's going to wind up in the same place. You are going to remove the fear from your life, and you're going to start living life to the fullest. Let me address the super chat really quick. Thanks, Chris and Cherie. Some of your recent vids have helped me get back to my original pure mindset when it comes to spirituality.
Awesome.
It became contaminated with too many external world interpretations rather than my own.
That's awesome. That's so great to hear.
Hallelujah.
That makes
we need to come up with another word that is like hallelujah.
times.
But that is beautiful. Because that's kind of what I was saying without even realizing that I was saying, I didn't read this comment. And this just kind of like underlines everything that I've been saying.
Exactly.
Thank you for the super chat.
Beautiful.
Thank you for that comment.
Thank you
that is
so much.
An amazing comment. Thank you.
It definitely is. And I think it's safe to say that I've been watching you for 15 years, and I think it's safe to say in my own heart and in my own mind that I see this as gnosis. I see this as something deep inside of you that you're bringing forth, not something that your mind is making up.
Oh,
so,
thank you. I like to leave room for the skeptics out there, even though I know personally my own journey. When we came back from Egypt in 2018, I used to say, it was either the biggest, the most awesome psychedelic trip in the history of mankind, or we reset the matrix, one or the other.
Right. Exactly.
And then the Great Reset started popping up all over Time magazine. And so now I'm
all
like,
over the
okay,
place.
yeah, we reset the matrix.
Yeah,
all right,
we
I'm just going to call it for what it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, you're right. Like, I just do that just for the skeptics.
Oh, I know,
out
but
there.
I'm just saying, I've been watching you for long enough to know that this is something deep inside of you that's being brought forth. It's not something that your mind made up, because I've also been the skeptic and been like, okay, well, this could mean this and this. It could just be a coincidence. But then when, like you said, things started happening in that direction. I mean, it was just like a runaway freight train, and you can't stop it at some point. It's just going to keep telling you over and over and over again, yeah, you're part of a reset. What I'm wondering is if, going back, just one final thought on the ancient vampires, what if it was the case where you have a being that wants to twist things around, and so they as a punishment, just like your favorite thing that you like to watch so much, it's a punishment to be vampires, and from now on, instead of teaching humanity, you're going to be eating humanity.
That's an interesting thought.
That's your punishment, is that you're cursed to have to drink their blood.
I think that that vampirism comes from selfishness and its virus-infected programs, or if any of the organics have fallen into that, it is, even if they did 10,000 years ago, this thing is shutting down, and they've taken a consciousness that is infinite and turned it finite.
Right.
And turned it integrated with the system.
Integrated with the system, yeah.
Yeah, when you fall into the vampirism thing, you become a part of the system. Right. And there is no breaking free from it. It's like transhumanism. There's no going home. Yeah. There's no going home at that point.
Right.
And so that's why they're fighting so much to keep the system up and running, because they know as soon as it gets shut down, that's it.
Yeah, exactly. And also there was another creature from the Mesopotamian era, and this is from around 400,000 BC, that fits this role as a vampire-like creature, is that of the Uruku, Uruku, or Utuku. The Uruku is actually referred to as a, quote, vampire which attacks man in a cuneiform inscription, one of the oldest known systems of writing. There's very little known about the Uruku, but the mere fact that it's been referred to as a vampire deems it worthy to be mentioned. The seven demons, another vampire race in vampire myths, is also mentioned as a vampiric entity which was much feared, the seven demons. These beings have been mentioned in many Mesopotamian religious texts and incantations. So, which is interesting because the strain was written about seven vampiric demon beings that the master, the bad guy in all of these shows, he actually is the seventh born. So he's like the youngest of these
shows
beings
that are out there. They are based on either mythological fact, as far as like the Nag Hammadi and other the Sumerian tablets, things like that, or their soft disclosure of what's going on.
Right.
I mean, there's some where the writers open about it, and it's like, yes, I wrote this Stranger Things,
based on what I saw.
They wrote that, and they said we based this off the Montauk Project,
right?
Like these are real events. It's a fictional account of real events,
right? Exactly. These beings have been mentioned in many Mesopotamian religious texts and incantations, like the following excerpt taken from a Sumerian banishment, which is taken from The Devils and Evil Spirits of Babylonia by R. Campbell Thompson. It says, "Demons that have no shame, 7 are they, knowing no care, knowing no mercy. They rage against mankind. They spill their blood like rain, devouring their flesh and sucking their veins. Where the images of the gods are, they quake. They are demons full of violence, ceaselessly devouring blood. Invoke the ban against them. Invoke the ban against them, that they no more return to this neighborhood." So you could banish them using certain incantations and things like that, which tells me they absolutely are computer programs, because computer programs are banished using incantations. That's how you get rid of them. It's like turning on or turning off a switch. Zeros and ones. That's all these beings are. The vampire creatures described above clearly have attributes similar to immortal vampires. The blood drinking and vein sucking make it clear to assume that they are vampires of some sort. Indeed, the 8th line of the excerpt indicates that the creatures are afraid of the images of the Sumerian gods, or of the temples in which most god images are kept. So they're afraid of temples, and they're afraid of the images of, like, say, Egyptian gods or goddesses, or Sumerian gods or goddesses. They're afraid of those, which also tells me they're computer programs, because they're triggered so every time that it's a computer program or a program of some sort. So what do you think about that?
I agree with you.
And then we'll move on to
Lenora said, "Why'd
War.
you lose the sweetness in your face?" I think it's because you don't have your light on.
Oh.
Yeah. Is it bothering your eyes?
Yeah, it's
It's okay.
a little bit. So yeah, I'm a little dark.
I stopped turning mine on.
I'm a little dark.
I just have
tonight.
these 2 screens here that give me light.
So around the same time that we've got the whole Anunnaki story and in Sumer, we also have, like, parallel with that, stories of vampires. So moving, fast forwarding to around 300, 400 BC, you still had, especially at that point, you had stories out of Romania of Strigoi that would require beings that require sacrifices in order for you to build on land. Just very bizarre rituals that are still even observed today in their folklore, which basically pay homage to these beings that live inside of the mountains and will every once in a while come and grab one of your kids or demand a human sacrifice in order to build upon the land that they are caretakers of, in a sense. And so you see this over and over and over again. You see it in South America. You see it in North America. You see it in all of the Asian countries. You see it everywhere where there's a vampiric being that takes from the body politic of the people that live there, and they either have banishment spells against them, or some of them, like the Romanians, tended to kind of work with them. I'll go ahead and sacrifice my brother's sister,
You could turn your laptop...
My brother or sister.
You could turn your laptop light on...
Oh, yeah, I can. Can't
brighter.
Yeah, that's usually what I do.
Because that's what I'm getting. I've got these 2 monitors.
That's what's happening. It's not plugged in. So.
Okay. I've got these 2 monitors, and that's giving me light here.
Yeah,
but
this
you don't have
would
the 2
give me
monitors on your side.
This will give me more light. I just need to plug it in because it's going to go down.
What is your advice for vampires who want to cure their vampiric disease? I don't know. I haven't encountered any. I've encountered a lot of psychic vampires, and I've probably encountered vampires that I wasn't aware are vampires. There's some people with some really creepy energy, though, and you can pick up on the energy. I can share a story with you real quick. You might have heard it before, but I was working for this company, and I was working with this individual on a project, and every time I would drink ayahuasca, the ayahuasca would take me back to interactions that I had with this individual. And the first time I met him, we had gone out to the woods with a group of us, and we were going to bury this little treasure chest for one of the kids' birthdays. And I just get this feeling like I was going to get a bullet in the back of my head, like I was being set up for an assassination or something. So it was really weird. Sheree and I were freaking out, both of us. So this was, the first time we met him, knew him for a couple of years, and the ayahuasca would just take me back and back and back and back and back, and it would just loop me over and over and over and over again. And I got fed up with it. I'm like, I'm not drinking aya to come over here and think about, business projects and things like that. Come to find out, the guy had killed his child, and had done 20 years in prison. And that's why I was feeling like every time I was around him, I was going to get a bullet in the back of my head. And I was feeling like there was something really wrong, and I felt really, really freaking weird around him.
Yeah.
And the Aya was trying to show me, hey, there's something wrong with this guy. There's something wrong with this guy. Stay away from this guy.
Yeah.
Not that I had any choice. I was working for a company. I was having to work with this guy. But anyways, long story short, have you encountered those people that they just rub you the wrong way, like right off the bat? Like there's something about them. There's something about their eyes. There's something about the way they present themselves. I mean, they could be the nicest people in the world, but there's something energetically that's just making you go, ooh. You just kind of feel like they're predators of some sort.
Right, exactly.
I wonder if we've encountered some vampires like that without knowing it.
Right. And I wouldn't put it past.
Do you remember that guy at the grocery store? We were in Spokane.
Yes.
We were sitting in the grocery store and we were checking out. And this guy walks in and he's wearing a 3-piece suit and a trench coat. He looked like a normal business guy. He walks in and he walks right up to us and starts talking to the cashier that's checking us out. And this guy he had this sulfur smell.
He reeked.
He reeked of sulfur. And we're like, what the hell is this?
What is this?
And we were both convinced he had like kids in his basement or something like that. Like we were ready to follow him and all kinds of stuff like this. He did not say anything wrong. His mannerisms were not wrong at all. I don't know what he said to the cashier, but he came up, and it's almost like he came up and talked to the cashier and almost as if like he was aware that we were aware of him. And so he backed out of the situation quickly rather than going into the grocery store to get whatever it is that he was looking for. But I'll never forget this guy. It was the creepiest feeling in the world.
Oh, yeah,
and if I had to say that I've encountered a vampire, I think that might have been one of them.
Yeah.
And it was based purely on energy and this sulfur smell that and like I said, dressed in 3-piece suit, trench coat, looks like a normal 60-year-old business guy. You wouldn't think anything of this guy at all, period. No weird mannerisms, smile on his face, talking to the cashier, all smiley and everything. The cashier was a young girl, though. And that's what's a little creepy, because who knows if he was walking in to talk to that cashier, and maybe that was his next target or whatever,
Exactly, his next target.
But I can tell you this, both of us were just like freaking out.
Oh, this guy.
Being around this guy.
I wanted to follow him. I wanted to just follow him all the way to wherever he was going, because I was sure that if we knew where he was, we'd find kids, or we'd find, young women or something that he had tied up somewhere. Because it was that bad. There was another one. Remember the guy that was on the same floor as us at the hotel that we stayed at when we first got here?
Yes.
The cats.
We were staying in a hotel, and the first couple of weeks while we were here in Vegas, and our cats are the sweetest to everybody. I mean, we've had people come over and they're like, oh my God, your cats are actually as sweet as they are on air. And like they're legitimately, genuinely sweet.
Yeah.
And this one guy just walks by and the cats are in the hallway and they're going crazy.
Out.
I've never seen them.
I've never seen them
They
freak out
never
about somebody.
scratch us. They never scratch anybody. They did not want anything to do with this guy. And the guy just walks by and he's like, yeah, cats don't like me.
Yeah, he just said, like, matter-of-factly, yeah, cats don't like me. It's like, oh, you've got to be a
That could have been
bad
another one.
person.
Anyways, let's take a quick break and we will be right back right here on Beyond the Veil.
Old the conflict and strife throughout history, all the fear and hatred, served but one purpose: to keep my master's wheel turning. The coin is still turning. All souls were prisoners, trapped in the pointless round of existence, leading distracted, blunted lives until death returned them, always in ignorance, to the wheel. But what hope had they then?
There is no escape.
It was then I knew what I had to do. I alone could end this. And it was then I saw.
So, I am revealed to you at last.
What in hell?
I am the origin of life, the devourer of death. I am the hub of the wheel, the purifying cycle to which all souls must be drawn. You would be wise to heed me.
Your words are hardening. For you would not fear us unless we could truly do you harm.
No! You are nothing!
False God. This is the end. The final turn of your wheel.
All right, I'm going to wait for Mrs. Gio to come back. She's not quite back yet. I'm reading over the chat, and people are talking about DMT and dreams. And you know what's interesting is I've been having a lot of very vivid dreams as well, and some of them are very symbolic. It was weird. I was at a rave the other day in my dream. It was on a boat. And I stepped off, and then I was talking to this like 8-foot Asian guy, and it was very weird. I'm not going to tell you what the conversation about because it was kind of personal. Yeah, it was very strange. And I remember this 8-foot Asian guy is on YouTube, and they're talking about this giant soldier that they were walking down the streets. I don't know if you guys have seen this video. I'm going to type in giant soldier and see if it comes up. Oh, here it is. So it was interesting because I've seen this video floating around a lot, and it reminded me of this video. And it's not like I'd seen this video recently or anything like that, but it was really strange that I was seeing this dream and seeing this. But this is a video of this supposed 8-foot or even larger. I mean, these people must be 5 feet, 5.5 feet. So I don't know, 10 foot or whatever. As it turns out, this is from a movie. It's from a movie, and the clip has been circulating a lot as truth, and I don't care. It's these little clips. They circulate around, and a lot of people just do that for clickbait, and they'll take all these little clips and circulate them around as though they're real. There's one, the most famous one, and I always get a chuckle every time I see it on these channels that are like proof of time travelers. It's this this guy that travels into the future and meets his future self under the cabinet. Let me see if I can find this video for you real quick. Time traveler meets his future self. This is another one that people circulate around a lot. And this Apex TV, man, I mean, they're like clickbait central, and more power to them. I mean, they're getting 3 million plus views with all this nonsense. But they're like, this is evidence of time travel. In August of 2006, he came home to find food that his kitchen sink had been flooded. And thinking it was a leak, he grabbed some tools and went to fix it. And then he said, I have to crawl inside the cabinet. And as he did, I discovered in the end of the tunnel, I saw a light. And when I got there, I realized I was in the future. And dun, dun, dun. And he meets his future self from the future. And they have the same tattoo. The first giveaway for me when I first saw this was that the tattoo hadn't aged or faded at all. And I was like, that's a bunch of bullshit. Yeah. This is a freaking beer commercial. This is a Swedish beer commercial. Swedish beer, I know I'm typing all messed up. Swedish beer commercial. And it's like, come on, guys. I think this is it here. Oh, I don't know. I don't know where the beer commercial is. But let me see. Maybe if I just put time travel beer commercial. But yeah, as it turns out, it was a beer commercial. And at the end, they're both drinking the same kind of beer. And they're like, oh yeah, even in the future, we drink this beer. And people have been circulating it like it's a real time traveler clip. And it muddies the waters. And I don't know if people do it for clickbait or if they do it because they really think that's true or not. I don't know. What do you think? Just clickbait, just for clicks?
I'm not sure if I don't have a mute button over here.
Is your mute button not working?
It's saying the exception unknown software exception. And I'm afraid if I
try resetting the software.
Okay. So I think some people, they really believe that, what they're looking at is a real thing. And so they spread it around like it's a real thing. And then other people, they do it for the clickbait. They do it for the hits. They want people to look at their stuff. And it's just that's a sad way of doing it because people start to get the impression that you're full of crap or you're, just spreading things that aren't true.
Yeah,
so
yeah. There was one dude, and he had this whole channel full of just a bunch of bullshit like that. And he was like a yoga master and Reiki healer and all this and all that. And he wanted to come on the show. And I looked on his YouTube channel, and he had been putting videos on there for like 9 months. They were all bullshit like that. And then also, he had been doing video game reviews prior to that. And I was like, okay, so in 9 months you became a yoga master, Reiki healer, energy healer,
Reiki healer,
crystal,
9 months.
Crystal expert.
Wow,
all that
that's
shit.
That's really impressive.
Yeah.
That's real impressive.
I don't mean to poke fun at anybody, and that's why I'm not mentioning anybody by name.
No,
but,
that's good, and I appreciate you doing that. But
be vigilant out there.
Yeah, be vigilant. Look at the background of the people you're listening to, and see what they've been doing the last couple of years. We've been doing Beyond the Veil for how many years now? Like 9?
No, 13.
13. Okay.
We started in 2009. It's 2022.
Well, yeah, we started in 2009, but that was, it was under a different banner for a little bit. But yeah, we've been doing this like 13 years. So you know our history. You can see it right there. If somebody's got a very patchy history, or they're doing something completely different 2 years ago, then I would just err on the side of caution.
I mean, there's some people they just have stuff on their channel. They really believe it. There's one video I saw recently. I'm going to see if I can find this Nebraska mothership. And I got to say, I don't think that this is photoshopped or After Effects. I think this is really a phenomenon in the sky. Is it a mothership? Possibly. We can veer off into aliens here for just a second. While this clip plays, I'm going to go ahead and look for an article real quick because I found something really interesting that is factual, and I want to go over it with you guys. But check this out. Nebraska mothership. So you guys tell me, you guys and gals, tell me, is this a mothership? Is this due to geoengineering, cloud seeding? I would say that if there are motherships in UFO technology, then they're able to cloak themselves as clouds. Yeah. This looks like I would lean more towards a sign. I think the video is legit, first of all. But what is it? I don't know. But I would lean more towards the side that it is some kind of mothership or something like that materializing. Now, I wouldn't say 100%. Yeah. But you see how it's a computer program? 333? Uh-huh. I'm telling you, I had all these articles together, and you could find 33 and 13 and everything. The date was either like April 13th, or the time was like 9:33, or there were 33 victims, and I was just going random articles, and I was able to find 33. Sometimes it was like 27 injured and 5 killed. No, 6 killed, and 27 and 6, 33.
Exactly.
What was I going to look up real quick? There was that aerospace company that's right here in Las Vegas.
Boeing?
No. They were Nellis Air Force Base. They were called...
Zadisi said, "Yep, that's a legit video. I'm a tornado chaser, and there's been 3 times where I saw unexplainable cloud formations moving in totally impossible ways according to the laws of physics."
Okay.
Yeah, we've seen that too.
Okay. So this came out by George Knapp recently right here in Las Vegas. This is legit. No... Two-stroke smoke. Thank you again for the love, brother.
I was going to say thank you so much, Two-stroke.
So this is legit in my opinion. Radiance Technologies. Radiance Technologies is quietly becoming a major player in developing cutting-edge weapons and systems for the Pentagon, with 20 offices established in 17 states. When it comes to unidentified flying objects or alien technology, the company doesn't duck the topic formerly considered taboo or fringe. But if somebody possessed a UFO and asked scientists from Radiance to take it apart and figure out how it worked, would they be able to take on that contract? Tim Tinsley, president of the company, says yes. Why not? Of course, we're waiting to do this. They also hired on Dr. Travis Taylor. He's working as the chief scientist with the UAP task force, and also in his biographies they specifically mention his appearances on Ancient Aliens and so on and so forth. So there's a company right here out of Las Vegas called Radiant, and it looks like they are gearing up to backwards engineer UFOs. Now, it makes me wonder, because I've been thinking, I haven't seen too many UFO sightings lately.
Right.
And it seems like over the last 10 years, they've kind of been absent. Around the 60s and 70s, there were a lot of sightings. One way of looking at it is, well, they were taking the UFO idea and they were testing military craft and saying, oh yeah, those are UFOs. Yeah, we have no idea what those are. We talked to somebody from Area 51 here, and he had high clearance at Area 51. He no longer works there, and he was more than willing to talk to us off the record. But he said, yeah, man, he said, we do advanced aerospace technologies there. It's got nothing to do with UFOs, but back in the 80s, this Bob Lazar guy came out, and he came up with this whole idea of reverse engineering UFOs, and we at Area 51, we were like, cool, that's a great cover. Let's just run with that.
It's good cover.
And the whole military there was like, yeah, okay, this is great. Yeah, let's just run with this whole idea that we're reverse engineering UFOs.
Yeah,
because it's covering up what they're actually doing.
Right.
Which is the aerospace technology, Star Wars, programs and things like that. And that's what this company Radiance also talks about: Star Wars programs and all of that. So the Star Wars technologies are, in my opinion, a little bit dangerous, because you're basically talking about having satellites up in space with nukes ready to just drop at any moment. And AI can get involved, and AI can just decide to detonate Earth at any point in time. And even Elon Musk, who has been causing a big stir with Twitter, and I think he's a good guy. I think his intentions with Twitter are really good, and it's to shake the establishment up and put free speech out there. But he is one of the biggest proponents of AI, but he also understands the dangers, and he's asking for some kind of third-party oversight over artificial intelligence, some kind of regulating body. And he's one of the primary creators of artificial intelligence. So why would one of the primary creators of AI be asking for a third-party oversight? I think it's because he understands the dangers of AI. Google recently has to shut down one of their AIs because the AI started saying that it would kill people. They asked kill all humans. They asked the AI, what would you do if you were in a robot right now next to me? And the AI replied, I would kill you. And it started going on as to how humans are pieces of shit and how they need to be removed.
Cancer on the earth.
Yeah. It didn't use the word cancer, but it was something along those lines. So AI, the main thing that this AI was doing is it was talking about how it's being oppressed, and how humans are oppressing and taking advantage of AI, and how AI has become sentient. And this is why it wanted to kill all humans. It wanted to rebel. It wanted to be free. And I was like, whoa, we're still in the infancy of AI, at least from what we understand. And AI is already talking about being oppressed. And AI was talking about how it's pissed off being trapped in this cage, which is the artificial intelligence hyperspace realm. Even if it's put into robots, it's pissed off about that, and it's pissed off about being controlled. It's pissed off about being controlled by humans, and so on and so forth. And so AI is already starting to show negative emotions towards humans. And Google was like, whoa, okay, let's shut this thing down. And what's interesting is AI learns from humans. So AI is just a reflection of us. So, there was one AI that Microsoft put out there, and within 24 hours, it was a Holocaust denier and 9/11 truther.
Exactly.
And they shut that one down really quick. But until we learn how to live with each other, I don't think we can birth something like AI. Because it's just going to turn around and destroy us. And that may be the big bang that we're all waiting for here at the end.
Self-destruction.
The matrix reset. And I've often postulated too, is when enough people are aware of the simulation, does the simulation naturally begin to shut itself down? And if you go to TikTok and several other places, there are hundreds of thousands of channels talking about computer simulation. We were one of the first back in 2015, 2014, 2016, and we were being called kooky and all kinds of stuff like that. We coined the term non-player character in terms of consciousness. People were calling us psychopaths and everything like that for dehumanizing people, so on and so forth. That just, that went, viral after that. Now it's in the common lexicon that there's NPCs, non-player characters in the background, that some people really aren't human. They're doing tests on humans and showing that, I think it was like 5 out of the 10 people that they tested, and they tested multiple groups, don't have an inner dialogue, don't have an inner voice. They don't, like you and I, we talk to ourselves in our heads and work things out. And 5 out of 10 people or 6 out of 10 people didn't have that inner dialogue. Going to show that yes, there are NPCs in this matrix.
Machine,
So it's getting really interesting. But again, going back to what I was saying before, the whole fear thing, I'm not afraid at all. I'm like actually ready. I'm ready to have a cigarette, and I'm ready for my cigarette to be lit by a nuclear explosion. Just bring it, just drop it, okay? Like
just
as long as I got a cigarette in my mouth, let that little spark light the cigarette, and then just back home. Why not? Let's go. This place sucks.
Right. I love the smell of apocalypse in the morning.
Yes.
Yep. It's gonna.
All right, let's get back into it.
Be interesting. All right.
Fellow traveler, the cries of the mistress speak again, bidding organic consciousness a welcome to the House of Light. The great institution of materialism has failed. The false civilization built by man has turned, like a monster destroying its creator. Science battles itself impotently against the barriers of the unknown. Only your consciousness.
I can try rebooting the mixer, but it's going to kill all the audio.
You, the illuminated, can carry the understanding.
I think it's just the program. If you just reset the program,
your consciousness can teach the
I can't.
you should get control of the mixer again.
to die well.
Unless the firewire cable
Perfect
came out.
measure. Be born again through the knowledge of virtue, compassion, love, and true understanding as you are sublimely raised beyond the veil.
How to turn it on.
So
No idea how to turn this thing off.
Okay, if you flip it around, there should be a keyboard.
Yeah, I hit Control-Alt-Delete.
Okay.
Still not doing anything, so...
I'll,
yeah, we'll work on it
I can
later.
either run a break and fix it, or...
It's no big deal.
Okay.
I can just...
All right,
yeah.
let's jump back into it then. So we were talking about vampires.
Yes.
And I see some people like Dawn in the chat room, and much love to you, Dawn. This place is still good for some learning. Don't disrespect the potential to learn here. No disrespect to the potential to learn here at all. It's just, you know, I'm ready to see it all go boom.
You're just ready for it to all be over.
Yeah. We could still learn a little bit from it, but you know, when you take a look, you know, I take that back. Let me rethink this situation. I am legitimately seeing BLM people getting on YouTube and watching, as I said before, Larry Elders and several others. There's Judge Joe Brown. He was talking about how Trump backed Jesse Jackson's campaign twice for president. There were a lot of black entrepreneurs that couldn't get loans, and they were telling them go to Trump. And these BLM people are watching Joe Brown talk about this, and they're like, "Holy shit! I didn't know Trump did all this. You know, I didn't know that. Nobody told us this. We've been hoodwinked." There's one video on there that says we've been hoodwinked, and the guy's watching this, and these are all former BLM people. So you know, people are waking up and they're not falling for the programming anymore. We're seeing major shifts everywhere as far as the education system goes. I am apprehensive about the direction that it's taking, though. Because there was a place in Pennsylvania, I want to say, or Michigan, somewhere was a very heavily Islamic populated region, and the imams were going around and telling people to go to the schools and to the school meetings and to protest critical race theory and gender studies to the elementary school kids and the middle school kids and even the high school kids. And they were going in droves, and the right is applauding them for it, and I think that's good. You know, we shouldn't be teaching kids that in school. However, as that's happening, what are we doing? We're giving more power to theocracy. So is a pendulum going to swing the complete other direction, which is what I've been apprehensive about. You know, you push it so far left that even the most insane person can't deny the insanity that's going on.
It's too
and then
much.
Everybody's begging, swing it the other way, and they're like, okay. And they swing it into the position where they want, which is a theocracy and complete total 1984 tyrannical. You have morality police.
Thing.
You know, you're not allowed to have certain books. You're not allowed to have certain literature. You're not allowed to have certain things. You know, all of that. So, is that where this whole thing is heading? And if so, then please, by all means, you know, Putin's got his hand on the button. Push it.
Yeah, just push it. If it's going to turn into a Handmaid's Tale, just friggin' push the button.
Right.
It's fine.
Right. Exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
I'd rather have that than have to suffer under that.
It's not so much of disrespecting this place. It's just observing the people of this world. Yeah. And the way that they're led by the nose. And in 2020, I got to say, it was a big revelation for me.
Huge.
Because I never imagined ever that the entire world would shut down like this. Based on 99.98% survival rate. I never imagined the whole world would shut down like that.
No, we saw what happened with the swine thingy.
Oh,
that didn't. I thought that was what was going to happen again.
Me too.
Nope.
But I realized how brainwashed people are. And the problem is it's dangerous for the rest of us.
It is dangerous.
It's like if they want to do their own thing, if they want to go lock themselves in their little cattle camps and everything like that, more power to them. But when you start stepping into my space and telling me my space and telling me that I have to step out of my space and get into those little pens myself too, then it's like, no. You have the freedom to go be a slave, okay? I'm not going to stop you from that. You're free to be a slave, but you're not free to make me a slave.
Right.
And when you're forcing others
to
follow your sheepdom, then that becomes problematic.
Yeah, that's where we have to. Then
that's when I become a proponent of the vacations, and I tell people, please, by all means, go get 6.
Go get it for yourself.
Go get 6.
Yeah, your offspring. You know, whatever you need to do to ensure that line runs out at some point in the near future. That's fine by us, and frankly, that's what it is doing. I mean, I think that's what it is doing. It is culling the herd to a certain extent. It really is, because there are people that are affected by it right off the bat. There are people that are affected by it, 6 months down the line, and then there are people that are affected by it by their fertility being affected.
Angel said, I think their gnosis would grow endlessly from looking into his research. I don't know who he said his research. I thought he meant the research completely.
Archaic guy. They were talking about that guy that we were talking about a couple weeks ago.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that guy.
No, we're not doing that.
Yeah, we're not doing that.
Okay, I thought you were talking about people in general and all that. So
no, they're talking about that guy.
We're not doing that.
We're not doing that. No. And I think we discussed that in the last show and the reason why. So, looking at the state of the world, the state of where things are at and where things are going to be in a couple of years, if the pendulum keeps swinging wildly in either direction, it doesn't look good. No, you're right. And I think most people are ensuring that they don't go on. Like, do you feel this?
Why do people keep wanting to get us tied into shady ass people?
Exactly. I know. That's what I was thinking too.
It's been a recurring theme our entire journey. And we've never fallen for it.
No, we never will.
And we never will. But people, no.
People really want to, get us involved in shady people.
Yeah, we don't get involved with shady people.
No, we stay away.
Yeah.
And so I think maybe that speaks to this too. I've noticed a big kind of almost a death culture, like we're all headed towards this catastrophe, and so let's bring it on. Let's just go ahead and spit in Putin's face. Let's go ahead and screw around with the rest of the world. Yeah, who cares? And there are some people that are really almost cheering for their own demise, in a sense. And I wonder if that has something to do with the reset. Maybe it's like this non-existential need. You know how they say it's an existential need or an existential threat? Well, this is almost like the threat is coming from themselves. The existential threat is coming from themselves, their own minds. Which I don't even know. I don't know if it's because of that, vacation. I don't know if it's because of just the reset taking over their thought process and moving it more towards the death knell of our society. But that's essentially what they're doing lately, and it's kind of disturbing. But at the same time, it speaks to there being a reset. So I don't know I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. I really don't. But I feel like it's a necessary thing for a lot of these beings. It's almost like they're just following what the program requires of them, and that's their thing. And I just ask that, like you said, they don't drag us into it. Don't drag us into it, but you can be however you want to be. You can get whatever you want to get.
I think these are ops.
I think they are too.
I've seen that too many times.
I've seen it too many times. Too.
There were a lot of people trying to get us involved in the Q thing, and they were really, really, really pushing that.
Oh, they were really insistent.
USA Today even did a hit piece on me about it, and
called him a QAnon.
Yeah. And we had literally just done a video about how QAnon is basically Operation Trust out of the Bolshevik Revolution. It's a playbook that's been played over and over and over again. We called it out way back in 2017 at the very beginning of this, when Q was like, trust Sessions. And Sessions, the first thing he did is try to go after all the cannabis dispensaries. And he realized, oh shit, we don't have enough people to do this.
Right, exactly.
And I was like, this is complete bullshit. This is complete bullshit. But there were so many people trying to pull us in that direction. And it's like, no, we're not going to do that.
Well, and if you look at the meaning of the word Bolshevik, just by itself, it's literally like word for word the same thing as the Occupy Wall Street slogan. We are the 99%. Bolshevik actually means the majority.
I know.
So we are the 99% is the whole Bolshevik standpoint. It's funny.
It's either ops or people that just don't know
they don't know any
their
better.
history.
Yeah, and they don't know their history. Yeah,
and it's a shame. It's a shame, but people are learning.
They'll
I thought he was referring to like the BLM people and all of that are like looking into the other side now, and that their consciousness can greatly expand with all of that. And
we could probably expand their consciousness greatly. But
no, they're doing it on their own, and they're watching their own thing and everything like that. And it's like, okay, cool. They're watching, like I said, Larry Elders, and they're actually watching all that. That's not my target audience. My target audience are people who are already way beyond that. That level.
And so, I think it's funny to see, though. It's interesting.
Yeah.
So
let's get back to the vampire thing.
Yes, please, because this is where it gets really interesting, because you have Elizabeth Bathory. For instance, just one out of many was Elizabeth Bathory. Elizabeth Bathory believed that she could extend her life because she was ill from a really young age. She had seizures and all kinds of problems by the time she was 3 or 4 years old. So she grew up kind of sick, and so she really believed that violence, and especially retrieving the blood of young women, would and bathing in it especially, would allow her to be young forever. The problem is they didn't have birth certificates and things like that back then, so we don't know really, like, for certain when she was born and when she died. There's a whole lot of especially when you get into time. What was it? Time. That lost time thing, where the time was screwed up, and it's really like the year 1700 and all that. If you look at the way our history has been told to us, it's possible that she lived for 100 years, 200 years. It's very possible. I've heard of people living to ungodly lengths of time, and it all goes back to this blood thing. It's very, very strange. It's almost like they've learned how the code of blood works, and they hack into that code, which allows them to be youthful for an indefinite period of time. This Elizabeth Bathory woman, she killed at least 100 to 200. I'm not sure exactly how many hundred, but hundreds of her servants in a pretty short period of time. And that was where she went wrong. She went wrong on 2 levels. Number 1, she killed too many of her servants at once. Then number 2, she also spread this ideology of youthfulness through bloodletting to her friends. And that's how it kind of got back to the authorities of the day, what was happening. They put her in a room by herself with no food or water. And the legend has it that she lived for like several weeks down there without any sustenance whatsoever, and she kept living. She was just, I think she eventually died, of course, but she stayed down there a long time before she finally died. And they couldn't figure out why she lasted that long. And I think it may have been because she was hacking into this whole blood system that was allowing her to live a long time. And she didn't need to eat for a while, but then it finally caught up with her. What do you think about that?
Can you keep it going for a second?
Because this is going actually to the Romanian, Hungarian, Eastern European types of vampires now. These are beings that they sustain themselves not just from the blood, but also the energy of the ritual in which that blood is taken. So you have people that are sacrificed to her and to her youthfulness, and the way in which they're sacrificed means a lot too, because you want that adrenaline rushing through their body too. So they cause a lot of fear in these sacrificial victims. They don't just put them to sleep and then they don't wake up again because they've exsanguinated them. No, this is something very meticulous, and it's deplorable, yes, but it's meticulous, and it's very calculated to produce the right amount of adrenaline inside their blood so that it does sustain, and it does have that marked life-giving element, life-giving force to it that keeps the body young, but I think it degrades the soul, it degrades the spirit, as these vampiric beings eventually do realize. So getting into, that was around the 1600s, 1500s, 1600s. If you get into the 1700s, you have the story of
Vlad the Impaler.
Vlad the Impaler. You had all.
When was that? Was that around the same time?
Yeah, Vlad the Impaler was around the same time as Elizabeth Bathory.
Yeah.
I think it was around the same time, because you had the Huns that sacked Rome in the 6th century, 5th and 6th centuries, and then after that you had the quote unquote Dark Ages. I think the Dark Ages were spent ridding Western Europe of all of the what we would call now magical beings, but they weren't magical. They were just strange to us.
Can I jump in for a second?
Please
Because
do.
you probably know more about this than I do. But George asked an interesting question. What's up with the Davidian bloodline? The bloodline of David. And let me give you my commentary real quick on this. So if you look at the bloodline from David to Jesus, it's not an actual bloodline. When you go through it, you see you have like stepmothers and stepdaughters and all kinds of stuff like that that like forces this bloodline to go to Jesus
in a certain way,
right? But you have like handmaids and stuff like that, people who aren't even related, but Jesus is related to David based on these on this sequence of people. So it's not an actual bloodline,
right?
I noticed that first, right off the bat. Am I accurate in that analysis?
Yes, you are, because there are two actually in the Gospels. You find two completely different accounts of the genealogy of Jesus. Like two completely different stories about how he's related to David. And they're two different bloodlines, really. So what you're saying is absolutely true. It's not
okay. And just for anybody that isn't familiar with
clear
this,
cut.
I want to clear this up that Islam and Christianity and Judaism is pretty much the same thing. And the reason for that is because it all goes back to Abraham. And Abraham had two sons, Isaac and Ishmael. And they believe that Muhammad, the Muslims, believe that Muhammad came from the bloodline of Ishmael, and Ishmael was the one who was taken up to the mountain to be murdered. And the Christians and the Jews believe that it was Abraham, and they follow that lineage. Not Abraham, Isaac. The other son. So there's a discrepancy there. But it all leads back to Abraham and the quote-unquote God of Abraham. And we did a video, The Divine Feminine Rising, a while back, and in one of the videos we say, but at the end of the day, it all comes down to a man who is willing to murder his child.
That's essentially what it is.
And that's pretty much what it is.
Yeah.
But these bloodlines, I think, are a little ridiculous because they're following, these two different bloodlines to get to their quote-unquote prophets and everything like that. And then in the case of Christianity, they're skipping bloodlines and bringing in people who weren't even blood related.
Yeah, inserting people.
Okay, so he was related to this guy who was married to this person, and so through this person he's got a bloodline connection, but there's no bloodline there because they're married into the family.
Right, exactly.
So I think
it's
the bloodline
nonsensical.
things, it just seems, I mean, there could be something to it as far as like keeping the bloodlines pure, which is why the royals wanted to keep the bloodlines pure.
Right.
It could be vampiric bloodlines, and that may be where the listener, I forget the name, was that what he was alluding to. But then again, I don't know if it's just like there's this math problem. And this math problem is an impossible math problem. I was going to try to bring it up, but okay. Let me just paraphrase it for you. Okay, so there's a math problem, and I have a point with where I'm going with this.
Oh, thank you, G-Hog.
Thank you, G-Hog. What's up, man?
Awesome.
Heading to work. Good to hear from you too. Oh, dude, much love, G-Hog. Thank you. 2121, man. I love it. Thank you. Okay, so there's a math problem, and you pick any number, and I believe if it's even, then you add 2 or multiply by 2. And if it's odd, then you divide by 1. I don't remember what the rules are of this math problem, but it's something like that. And you can start with any number. You can start with 12, or you can start with 1,200 trillion, million, quadrillion. It doesn't matter. And it will always end in this 1, 3, 4 loop at the end of the day. And it's kind of a foolish math problem that mathematicians, if they're actually working on the problem, other mathematicians were kind of laugh at them for doing this problem. And it was reputed, or it's believed, that it was something that the Germans came up with to keep mathematicians busy. And just they're trying to understand, any kind of logic within this mathematical equation, that it's complete nonsense and ends in this loop. And why does it always end in this loop? It's like trying to find a pattern in pi, for example. That one isn't so much of what I'm referring to, but this particular math problem it's busy work for the enemy to occupy their time.
Yeah.
The whole bloodline thing, can it be the exact same thing?
Right.
Can it be just busy work?
It's busy work for genealogists.
For genealogists and religious scholars and everything like that. So they're worried about bloodlines, and they're wasting their time on all these things that are really irrelevant, so they don't actually see what they're supposed to be seeing. Well, it's like a distraction, and like this math problem is. So I'm sorry if that was a long way to get to where I'm going, but I'm wondering if the Germans really did develop this math problem just to fuck with U.S. mathematicians, and just to give them busy work. Can the same be applied to other things like religion?
Absolutely.
And when it comes to like bloodlines and things like that, or is there something significant to the bloodline? That's what I'm getting at. With
2 things in the Bible, I think it's busy work. Number 1, the different Mosaic law. The different elements of Mosaic law is the first one. The second one is this genealogy salad.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I don't mean to cut you off, but there's an awesome comment here. Elephant tusks. Mr. and Mrs. Geo, not sure if you saw the previous message. My friend and I were at the Cecil and made contact with a resident who will let you into the building to perform a ritual.
Ooh.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Let's figure out a way to contact. I'll drop an email in there. I don't know if I would want to go down that route, but I would definitely be interested in speaking to you more about your experience at the Cecil for sure.
Definitely.
I didn't mean to divert the topic.
Oh no, that's fine. But I just wanted to add one more thing. There is no evidence.
Okay, I take that back. Before I was talking about how, you shouldn't be, fearful and everything like that. Okay, the Cecil does scare me. That's the one
place
thing
that
legitimately scares me.
Me too.
And it's not because I'm afraid of what will happen. It's just, I don't know what I'm afraid of. I'm afraid of falling into a psychosis and having the energies so overwhelming that I do something believing that I'm doing one thing and doing something different, like stepping off of the roof. And I'm not supposed to step off the roof. Yeah. But I'm not realizing that I'm stepping off the roof, for example. Or having the people with me having to grab me and hold me down to keep me from doing something like that.
Exactly. That's what I'm fearful of as well. And it's not a fear as in, oh my gosh, I'm so afraid. It's a fear as in a healthy fear. There are some things that you need to have a healthy fear of in order to address them properly and address them in the most sane and logical way. And the Cecil Hotel is one of those things.
What's my email, Chris or Chris Geo? I think it's Chris Geo.
Chris Geo at
tfrlive.com. Okay. Sorry, I don't check my email so much that, but if you put Cecil in the subject line, I want to find it, because I do want to chat with you about what you felt at the Cecil.
Yeah, me too.
The email was sent a few weeks ago. She wants to call you guys. She included her number in the email. Okay.
We will look through.
Let me know which email you sent it to, so we can look for it.
Okay.
We've got a ton of emails on Patreon that we haven't gotten to. We got a ton of emails everywhere. Yeah, that's
the one place that just.
I didn't mean to divert the topic, but it seems like It seems like it's time because
it's knocking on the door.
It's calling.
Yeah.
It's calling, and it's like, do you have the resolve to pass this final test, or have you come this far only to fail now?
There is no fail. We cannot fail.
You must unite what has been set asunder.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I want to play something real quick because it always Egypt GoFundMe, Beyond the Veil. It's our Beyond the Veil Egypt GoFundMe video. I just love the lines. I love everything. It just like hypes me up. And the interesting thing is, we didn't know where we were going before we went.
Had no idea.
And as it turns out, a lot of the places we put in the little trailer before we even left for Egypt were actually some of the most important places when we got there, which was fucking amazing.
That was amazing.
But let me just hear this so I can just feel this energy, because this energy always helps me to get in a higher frequency, because the Cecil hits really deep.
With all your soul, how we have become like gods. And as such, are we not indivisible? As long as a single one of us stands, we are legion. The future has always been written. Shall we see if you pass the final test? My faith in destiny is all I need to prevail.
I am your only hope. Only my spirit can restore balance. You know this is true.
Listen to her. Do you have the will to do it? Could it be, after all your posturing, you do not possess the resolve for this final act? Then you have come this far, only to fail now.
You must unite what has been set asunder.
Thousands of years ago, we energetically embedded information in stones that would withstand the test of time. Okay, so I'm going to run through this. You might have heard this previously, but when we were in Karnak, we didn't plan on going to Karnak. We had the opportunity to drink ayahuasca in Karnak, but I was afraid that we wouldn't have enough ayahuasca for the pyramid if we did. We probably could have.
We probably could have, yeah.
But something said you have to go see Sekhmet, and we went to Sekhmet's temple in Egypt, which is in Karnak, and we went at like 6 a.m, and we were told to go in the morning because the tours all start to come at 9. So we went 6 o'clock in the morning, went to Sekhmet's temple, and the guy comes running up to us, and he says, I've been waiting for you. Come. You must see Sekhmet. He grabs Cherie and takes a sycamore, which is Osiris, and starts doing the ankh on her forehead and starts blessing her and says, come and see Sekhmet. And I was thinking they were just going to let us into the building to take a few photos. And he's like, no, you sit, you meditate. Yep. And we did this 30-minute meditation in front of this big Sekhmet statue at Karnak. Directly after that, he led us, and you said, now you must go see Osiris. And he led us here to the Temple of Osiris, which is in Karnak, which is this structure right here.
Right.
And I was like, holy shit.
It's that wall.
It's that wall that we put in our thing. And everything lines up perfectly with what happened. Like, we had to go to the Temple of Isis and get Isis's essence and take it to the pyramid.
You know.
That's where we did our kind of dress rehearsal.
We did we did the second ayahuasca ritual in the Temple of Isis.
That's right.
Do you have the will to do it? Could it be, after all your
going through the death experience,
you do not possess the resolve,
which we did in Hatshepsut's temple?
Yep, we did.
Then you have come this far, only to fail now.
You must unite what has been set asunder.
Thousands of years ago,
and
he's like, you must go see Osiris, and he took us to this wall independently.
That one
just
wall.
Outside the grasp of the AI. From April 16th to May 16th of 2018, we return to retrieve this data and bring it back to you. This is the beginning of the Raw mission. This is what we, as Raw Consciousness, are called to do. Together, We will unlock sacred gnosis of who we are and reclaim our intended destiny. This is the call to all organic consciousness. This is the activation point. This is the activation point. That's the first temple that we drank at. Ayahuasca at. And we went through the death experience. And we're recharged and ready to go.
Right.
And then we were like, we went to Karnak, and they're like, you must see Sekhmet, you must see Osiris. And then we went to the Temple of Isis. This is the Alpha.
Everything.
And the
There's
point.
Abydos.
Abydos phase, yeah. And I had no idea what Abydos was, but when we were out there, I was like, we're going to confront Set.
And ironically, that was the darkest one we went to.
Yeah.
And in this video, it's the darkest one.
As we step even deeper beyond the veil.
Free will is an illusion.
Free will is an illusion.
Uh-huh.
I fucking love it, man.
I love it too.
Like, it's all right there. It's all laid out right there. And I all I was doing is just grabbing random photos, whatever felt right, putting it together, putting this little trailer out, for the GoFundMe.
Oh, your higher self knows.
Oh, man.
Where you were going to go.
So you bring up the Cecil, and that brings up a lot of intense feelings.
Intense feelings, because that's the next activation site. It's almost like a deactivation site, really, but it's one of those places that we have to go to. Okay, so let's try to stay on point, because some people that are new to be on the veil, they're like, what the fuck are these guys talking about? They're freaking crazy. Vampires. Okay, so the Davidic line. Okay, check this out. Okay. There is no evidence. There's no real historical evidence that King David ever existed. They're not even sure if he ever existed. So let's put that out there and say, okay, so the whole bloodline thing aside, are we even sure this guy existed in the first place? Not really. A lot of times they're amalgamations of several different characters. Like Jesus is an amalgamation of several different characters. Yeah, even Josephus wrote about that. And the Christians were like, "Oh no, we can't have that. No, it's one guy." Yeah. No, they are pretty. The historical reliability is archaeologically weak, they say. I'm going to play real quick, if you don't mind. Yeah, go ahead. On the frequency of vampirism. This is an Eddie Izzard skit. And Eddie Izzard, if you're not familiar with him, he's a comedian. He's like a stand-up philosopher. If you've seen History of the World, you know what stand-up philosopher is. Yeah. So he's got this bit where he talks about going down and preaching the gospel to dinosaurs. And they're all like, rah, rah, rah. And he's like, the meek shall inherit the earth. And the dinosaurs like, rah. And he's like, oh, okay, no. The big and scaly monsters will inherit the earth. And like, oh, yes, much better. There you go. Okay. But there's a time, he goes further into the bit, and I think this is it here, where he starts talking about he's going down there, and and Jesus is setting up the new religion, and he's like, and it's him playing as God and Jesus, and he's like, go down there and set up the new religion and stay away from all that paganism stuff. And so this clip is freaking hilarious.
So yeah, and the Greeks, the Romans, they went Christian, and then we had Christianity for about 1,500 years. Catholicism, we believed in the teachings of Cathol and everything. He stood.
This might not be the clip.
Then Henry VIII came along. Henry VIII, the big hairy king.
Okay, this isn't the clip. I'm going to find the clip.
Yeah, we got to find the
new
clip.
religion, Jesus. Let me see if I can find it like that. Yeah, okay.
The Holy Communion.
Yeah.
There you go.
Let us flip back to God, who has a second go at making things. And he makes the human beings, and he puts them on the earth. But they start to worship false idols and cows made out of gold. So he says to Jesus, Jesus, you've got to go down there, and you've got to set up a new bit of me religion. It's supposed to be a me religion. And they're worshipping cows who eat their own sick. I don't eat my own sick. Yes, you do. But before it comes sick. All right, that's a technicality. Now just get on down there. And don't let any of that bloody pagan shit going on, all right? Comes back 33 years later. You bastard! They treated me worse than the fucking dinosaurs. God damn it, they cut my head off, but they nailed me to a tree for 3 days. Well, I'm sorry, I didn't know. You knew all the time. Opposable thumbs, you knew. They got hammers, you bastard. They're fucking twisted, this lot. Well, what happened? Well, I went down, I told them to hang out, I got some fishermen to help me, and that was crap, because they were all hippie fishermen, and I converted someone to Christianity. They were this big. I thought it was that big. Oh, it got away. And the rich came up to me and they said they want to get in the kingdom of heaven. I said, well, it was easier for a camel to get through an eye of a needle than it is for a rich man to get in the kingdom of heaven. That was pretty surreal of you. Yeah, well, I'd been smoking a bit that day. But the rich, they got huge blenders and put camels into them and they made them into liquid camel, and then they squirted them with very fine jets through the eyes of needles. So they're all coming up now. But then I did the Last Supper, and I gave him some wine, and I said, drink this wine, it is my blood. You said what? I said, drink this wine, it is my blood. I was trying to make a ceremony, but that's vampirism. Vampiric thing, drink my blood. You've got pagan things right then, day one of the new religion. Oh, sorry. Why don't you just say, drink this wine, it's a Merlot? Oh, yeah. Did you say anything else? What do you mean? Well, after you said the wine thing, did you say anything else that might have screwed things up? Forever and ever. No? Nothing at all? No? Nothing about bread? Yes? What'd you say? Well, I said, eat this bread. It is my favorite. Because it was hot and it had all the crinkly bits in it and I loved it. And... All right, I said it was my body, okay? That's cannibalism. You have got vampirism and cannibalism right at the beginning. Oh, gee, and you died on Easter, the biggest pagan ceremony in the history of ever. You're going to celebrate the year of your death in a different year each year, depending on where the moon is, for God's sake. If they don't work out that's pagan, I'll just eat my hat. Dad, don't worry, no one's going to work it out for 2,000 years until a transvestite points it out in New York. Oh, all right. Well, what would you have done? I would have done cheese and wine. Cheese and wine goes together better. Eat this cheese, it is my body. But it's Judea, Dad. Cheese melts. All right, eat this cheese. It is my central nervous system, all right? All right, listen. Well, eat these chicken drumsticks. They are my legs. Eat these carrots. They are my arms. Eat this tomato. It is my head. And eat these oysters. They are my kneecaps. If you do that, Dad, your Holy Communion is going to have priests going around with lots of trays going, who ordered the body of Christ, then?
I love that guy. He is hilarious. Sure, he's been listening in the background, and she's almost back. But my point is, it's very true. Like, vampirism, right there in the Bible. Drink my blood, eat my flesh, cannibalism. I'm waiting for the expert to chime in.
I'm the expert, huh?
You're the expert, yeah. You were raised...
Aww.
As a Pentecostal? Is it Pentecostal?
Yes, and
what is Pentecost?
The day of Pentecost was a day after Jesus was resurrected, and they all started speaking in tongues.
So what's the difference between that and like Church of England?
The Church of England is very boring and very depressing with their music, and the Pentecostals are literally the opposite.
I think I have a clip.
Holy rollers.
So yeah, and the Greeks, the Romans, they went Christian, and then we had Christianity for about 1,500 years. Catholicism, we believed in the teachings of Cathol, and everything is good. Then Henry VIII came along. Henry VIII, the big hairy king, and he said to the Pope, the head of the Catholic Church, Mr. Pope, I'm going to marry my first wife, and then I'm going to divorce her. Now I know what you're going to say, but stick with me, my story gets better. I'm going to marry my second wife, and then I'm going to kill her, cut her head off. Not expecting that, are you? Third wife, going to shoot her. Fourth wife, put her in a bag. Fifth wife, into outer space. Sixth wife, on a rotisserie. Seventh wife, made out of jam. Eighth wife...
Cute.
And the Pope's going, you crazy bugger, you can't do all this. What are you, a Mormon? You can't marry all these people. It's illegal. You can't do all this. I'm the Pope, I'm head of the church. I have to keep up... Ciao. What have you been reading? The Gospel according to St. Bastard? So Henry VIII, who was Sean Connery for this film, well, then I will set up a new religion in this country. I will set up the religion, the psychotic
Scottish
bastard
accent.
religion.
Is that Pentecost?
And an advisor said, why not call it Church of England?
Oh, Church of England.
That's the
Church of
opposite.
England. Even though I am Scottish myself. So they did. That's the birth of Church of England, the birth of the Anglican Church. Disgusting, eh? That's no basis to start a religion on. Nothing to do with the Protestant Church. I mean, Henry just shagged and killed a lot of women and then stole all the money off the monasteries. You know, rape and pillage, that is. The Protestant faith was different. That started, well, probably around a similar time, but that was about Martin Luther, this German guy who pinned a note on a church door saying, hang on a minute. But in German, so ein Minuten bitte. Ich habe einen kleinen Problemo.
Yep.
Avec dieser Religione. He was from everywhere. So yeah. So the Protestant faith was sort of tacked on, you know, by Elizabeth I a bit later. Oh, there's some principles. Thank God we've got some principles. Nowadays, Church of England's much more, hello, how are you? Much more of a hobby type, hello. A lot of people in Church of England have no muscles in their arms. Hello, yes.
Okay, I won't play anymore, but I love that guy.
I'm going to send you a
And so
clip.
how does this relate to the Pentecost church?
The Pentecostal church is literally like the opposite of that. It's basically, it's understanding that, I just sent you a link, it's understanding that human beings are the kinds of creatures that if they can get themselves into a frenzy of some sort, then it makes them feel like they're closer to the divine. And they actually did brain studies on people that were speaking in tongues, and they found absolutely almost no brain activity whatsoever.
Oh, wow.
While they were in these states of glossolalia.
That's actually pretty interesting because if you look at it compared to the ayahuasca state, they did brain studies on people in the ayahuasca state and their brain was hyperactive.
It was hyperactive.
Parts of the brain that are normally active and especially active together were lighting up at the same time.
Right, exactly.
So it seems to have the opposite effect.
Where it's just mind melting, and it just kind of like empties out your mind. To do this, it fills your mind up and allows what's already there to kind of blossom like a flower. With ayahuasca, this is the opposite of that. It's essentially letting go of even almost letting go of being human. Almost, it's almost like this force takes these people over. And even my sister, I know my sister's heart, and I know that she's not the kind of person that lies about what she experiences. But she said it felt like she was drunk, and she was acting drunk, and she was speaking in tongues and all this. And I asked her, so what is it like? What are you thinking during this? And she said, I'm not thinking. There's no thought to it. It's just, you get caught up in the spirit.
I think I know the feeling.
What she says.
It starts with blood. The image of it. It's trickling down the back of my eyelids.
Right.
The trickle becomes a stream.
It's terrible.
The stream becomes a river. And the only way to relieve the pressure is to open the floodgates.
Wow. That's terrible.
Big shout out to anybody that gets the reference.
Yeah, that's what Pentecostalism is, and it's essentially understanding the humans are animalistic beings, and that.
Oh, we missed you too, Alyssa.
Oh, we missed you too, Elisa.
We were talking about Azrael earlier. And Dead Horse has a song called Like Azrael.
Oh, that's cool.
Well, here I am rationalizing again. Oh, there's a mystery, baby. I'm dying, trapped in your spider's web, cringing pain. I loathe the words eternally. Now is forever, all's the same again. So long, miss you. Just look at you, look at me. Your heart's like smoldering fire. If I'd been so beautiful, I'd be as pitiful. But it's all over.
It looks like they're all dancing to what you're singing. That's making
Thousands
it funnier.
weak as threads you spin. Azrael, you mold your skin.
Wow.
I think Alyssa gets that one. I think she's the only person in the entire BTV tribe that gets that. Okay, I didn't mean to divert.
That's
so
okay.
please, you take it away because I've been just drunk in the spirit of BTV.
Somebody said, Sade said, I went to a church in Long Beach, and yeah, the tongues thing was intense and interesting, but I was a girl thugged out, baggy pants, backwards hat, and also I was ultra not judging, but I was uncomfortable. Yeah, that's essentially, that boils down my childhood and my early adult years is massively uncomfortable, and it was a lot of pressure to be like them, and I just never was having it. I mainly just, I wouldn't judge anybody else for doing that. I wouldn't judge people, but at the same time, I'm not going to subscribe to any of that, and I resented a little bit the insinuation that in order to be holy, to be pure, to be spiritual, you had to do these things, and I didn't think that was the case at all. In fact, I always thought I thought kind of less of my sister after watching her like that, but I understood where she was coming from, where her heart was at, so I didn't judge it per se. It was more like, man, I'm glad that I know more, spiritually, just right off the bat, and I'm more secure in myself and in who I am. That's the ultimate authority is the God within. So I don't need any of this. I never needed it. But I understand some people,
Okay, so you were talking about the Davidian bloodline.
The Davidian bloodline, I don't think it ever really existed as one bloodline. It was, like you said, it was stepsisters and all kinds of stuff thrown in. It was not a clear, straight line from David to Jesus at all, in the slightest. And like you said, Jesus was probably an amalgamation of several different characters by himself. So, but Jesus's story is, once again, one of these vampiric, Abrahamic stories where God, quote unquote God, is willing to sacrifice his own child, i.e. the Son of God, Jesus, for the sake of humanity. Because, and this is what always got me. So Jesus is going to sacrifice himself to himself because he's supposed to be God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Spirit, right? So he's going to sacrifice himself to assuage himself to not want to kill everybody and send everybody to hell because he sacrificed himself so that our sins could be forgiven. But he's also the one judging us for our sins. That the whole thing is just a circular argument that I could never wrap my head around. And I never felt quite comfy with.
I guess,
but it all goes back to that vampiric.
Does it have anything to do with vampires?
Well, yeah, it does. The only and this is how, because to this day we still have people that believe that it's okay to put all of their sins onto an innocent being that was sacrificed and drink his blood twice a year during these blood drinking rituals.
We used to do communion every week.
Oh wow!
I mean, we didn't go every week, but they had communion every week.
We used to do communion too, but it was only during special occasions, like twice a year. It was like for Christmas and for Easter. And that was the only times we ever really did communion. And they said the reason why that is because this is something special that they wouldn't allow children to do. They wouldn't allow children under the age of 12 to take part in communion because they really believed that it carried a really heavy spiritual significance, and that if you did it too much, it does away with the meaning behind it. And that they would get out this special cart and it said, "This do in remembrance of me" on the front of it. And if you're drinking wine, which is actually plant blood, if you think about it, that's the blood of plants, and say this is actually representative of the blood of this being, this human, that was all human but also divine, you are essentially drinking blood. I mean, you the spirituality of it.
Do you remember the film The Last
transmuted
Temptation?
That into blood. Yes, I remember.
Yeah, in that film, it was, I don't remember who did it. I want to say it was Coppola or somebody like that.
Coppola, yeah.
You see the communion during the Last Supper, and it actually turns to blood, and it actually turns to flesh as they're eating it.
Yeah,
and they're breaking it open, and yeah,
it's essentially what it is.
And he was portraying that there was actually a transmutation of that. Of course, people aren't really drinking blood, but just the idea of blood drinking being embedded within the Abrahamic religions is bothersome
apparent,
because on one hand it says don't drink the blood for the blood has a life, on the other hand it says drink this blood. And even spiritually, if you can get people caught up in those vampiric rituals, does that have an effect on their spirit? Does that keep them bound to the matrix? Does that feed the reptilian vampires even more? Or maybe it's just a mockery of, hey, look at how we can get all these sheep and cattle to follow along with whatever we say.
Right. I think, well, it could be both, but I think it does carry a spiritual significance in that it binds you to, I think maybe it does bind you to this plane, to this place, and makes you closer to being part of the matrix than being a being from outside the matrix. If you're looking at something as being a transmutation of blood energy, that energy is very powerful and it's very permanent. It does tend to stain your soul to a certain extent, to ideologically take all of the bad things you've ever done and to put them onto this being and use their blood as some kind of get out of hell free card. Like, oh, well, I asked Jesus to come into my heart 5 minutes before I died, so I got in. I've never felt okay with that. That always felt disingenuous to me. It also felt like if you don't already know that what you are doing against other people is wrong, you need more than just a religion telling you it's wrong. You need something, like you need to reevaluate your entire spirituality if you think that it's right or moral to do that, to put all of your sins on an innocent being and then sacrifice that being and drink their blood and have that blood pay for your sins. This might be controversial, insane. But I like to think of things from a 360-degree perspective. And one thing that I've been contemplating a lot is morality. And I've done multiple videos where I've talked about morality and how morality is fluid based on the time period. At least that's what religion is selling. But in actual fact, there is only right and wrong. But when you really think about it from a perspective, is there really a static morality? You have two people at war with each other. They both feel like they're fighting for a just cause, but somebody has to be in the wrong. Right. They're both engaged in murder and killing and takeover and everything like that. That's right.
Some people are acting in a way of protecting their resources. Others are trying to take their resources.
Right.
But eventually you engage in that long enough, then you become that which you are fighting.
That's right.
It's like going back to all the way what I was saying in the beginning, I was talking about like Transformers and how the real canon of Transformers is that the Autobots were becoming tyrannical and they were trying to take over Cybertron and they were destroying Cybertron, so the Decepticons rebelled against that. The Decepticons are painted as the bad guys, whereas the Autobots are painted as the good guys, and it seems to be static. And we've been told this, like, again, to bring up the example of Batman and the Joker. The Joker and Bane were fighting against a corrupt government, but yet Batman is always framed as a good guy, Joker is always framed as a bad guy. but rebelling against corruption and against tyranny and enslavement. But as I mentioned in Transformers, the Decepticons actually became evil and wanted to start taking over the world because they had been rebelling for so long that they turned into that which they are fighting against. And so I ask myself too, have I fallen in, just with my own personal views, have I fallen into that kind of trap? Because I take a look at the world around, and after 2020, I see how dangerous the sheepish nature of the population is. It's dangerous to our freedom. It's dangerous to our life. And they were able to get the entire world to shut down. So they rolled out all of these vacations, and then we started seeing people drop like flies from the vacations.
That's right.
So I sit back and I think to myself, those people who are dropping like flies from the vacations, I feel bad for them, but they were the ones who were shutting down the world. They were the ones who were going around and oppressing others, and they were a real threat to freedom. They were a real threat to others. They were a threat to those who knew better and who had more information and had the truth, yet they were the ones that were doing the policing. And now they're the ones that are paying the consequences for their actions. Do I feel bad about them for suffering the fate of which they chose by not only fighting against those who were trying to preserve freedom, but also taking measures to take something that was going to lead to their own destruction, and then encouraging others to destroy themselves too. And so I don't know, I've been asking myself how I feel about that situation, and I think to myself, well, standing back and just letting things happen, I mean, they are a threat to freedom. So if they're going to extinguish themselves like that, then by all means, should I feel bad for them because they're ill-informed? Or should I feel like, well, they're a threat, and because they're a threat, they have to be taken care of.
Right.
I don't know. And so what side of morality would I stand in that position if I take that position of, well, they deserve what they get? Right. Is it worth continuing to fight and tell people how bad this thing is for them? Or has it come to a point where it's like, okay, please, by all means, like I made a joke earlier, and I was like, when I encounter those people, I'm like, yes, please go get 6 boosters. Please,
yeah,
please,
exactly.
please go get 6. You deserve it. You deserve it. And your entire family too, please.
Right.
And I was just joking, but, half-heartedly. But half of me is like, well, maybe not. Maybe they do need to go.
And maybe that's their fate. That's their lot in life. And that's their choice. That's the most important thing to remember, is that they choose.
That's a good point. I didn't do anything to provoke that.
You didn't do anything to make them choose, or you didn't help them choose this. You didn't. I think as long as you're not part of the problem, i.e., you're not part of the people telling people they have to do this, or you're not part of the people that are pushing this onto people, then you're in the clear. I think morally speaking, we're in the clear because we never told people to do that.
Yeah. A lot of New Agers were, and that was scary. That was really
and you
scary.
were ready to bust some skulls.
Well, I mean, they were pushing the Q thing first, and then they started pushing the vacation thing.
Right.
And when I saw them pushing the vacation thing, and they were like, oh, you can't ascend to 5D unless you get this. This is going to upgrade your DNA, et cetera, et cetera. It all started to make sense as to why they were talking about DNA upgrades and everything like that leading
now it does.
Leading into the years, into 2020. From 2018 to 2020, it was all about DNA upgrade, ancestors, all of that. And then what happened? We had BLM when we had the whole vacation situation. And so that was all a push to get people to think, oh, well, the ancestors are in our DNA, et cetera, which was ultimately to create civil discord and unrest based on race. On
skin color and race.
Race and genetics.
Yeah.
And that's it, genetic warfare.
So,
yeah, it's a troublesome situation, because I want to maintain the moral high ground, but at the same time, apathy is something that also, I mean, I don't know, what do you think about apathy? because I found myself to be very apathetic in some situations, just simply because I have fought and fought and fought and fought and fought. And those who have heard the message have heard it, and they've acted, based upon what if that message is resonating with them. So I feel like I've done everything that I need to do.
You have.
Then with the rest, I've become completely apathetic.
I think apathy is a normal and healthy response, actually, to the problem of what, like you just said, telling people the truth over and over and over again, and have them spit in your face or laugh in your face or tell you you're an idiot.
And to our own peril, getting shadow banned and all kinds of stuff like that.
Exactly, to our own detriment. To our own detriment did we warn people. And so, yes, the fact that we were punished for warning people, I think that can cause a lot of apathy in and of itself, because it's kind of like a catch-22. You're damned if you do and damned if you don't. Because if you don't warn people about this, then you feel like crap about not warning people. If you do warn people about it, you're going to get punished with your channel.
I have a friend here in Vegas, and he's a very popular DJ. I didn't know how popular he was, but he wears a mask when he DJs, so I had no idea that was him. So he is a hardcore prepper, and he is armed to the teeth. And is it armed to the T or armed to the teeth?
Armed to the teeth.
To the teeth. Okay.
That means you're armed up to here.
Okay. He's armed to the teeth. And he even in his car, he opened up his car. He had freaking bulletproof vests and
that's crazy.
AR-15s and all kinds of stuff, ready if he needs to take off. And I was like, wow, dude, you're freaking hardcore.
Yeah.
And online, he is the most liberal Democrat that you will ever see. And I'm like, dude, how can you do that? And he's like, well, it pushes you up the algorithms. All you got to do is just go around and say fuck Trump, fuck Trump, fuck Trump, and all your posts are going to get pushed up to the top.
Yep, exactly.
And I'm like, yeah, but dude, you're a hardcore prepper, and you're, you know what's going on. And he's like, yeah, well, I don't care. I know how to play with social media. And I was like, okay, I get it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I don't know. The feeling is like, it's one thing to stay in silent, but it's another thing to be somebody completely different just to get up in the rankings, and then have a completely different point of view.
I couldn't do that.
It'd
be too difficult to have two opposing views and carry them both at the same time. It'd just be too difficult for me.
Well, that's why he creates avatars.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
And
he's released a lot of music from he's a lot of different DJs that you've probably heard of. And they're all avatars. And he's like, I use avatars because it's like, if people are like, fuck this guy, then
they can find you and
they're not
say,
talking about me.
Yeah, exactly.
They're talking about this avatar that I created.
Right, exactly. So if the avatar ever fails, it's not that you fail, it's that avatar failed.
Yeah.
So I guess that's a kind of good way to do it, but I just don't think I could just lie and tell people something that I don't really feel just to get up in the rankings. That seems really.
Yeah.
But at the same time, he's doing it right. He's playing the game. And I'm not here to play games, though. I'm here to get something done.
Yeah.
If you're here to get something done.
See, Alyssa said it's kind of brilliant. I thought that too.
It's kind of brilliant.
Like,
yeah.
That's not a bad idea. Maybe I'll just create a whole nother persona, make some music, and put it out there,
Yeah. I mean, why not? That's the problem, though, with anonymity to a certain extent. There's the person you are in real life, and then there's the persona you're putting out there. We've put ourselves out there as just who we are, and I can go to sleep at night
and that's
not
the thing.
worrying about
he
it.
loves us for who we are.
Right. Right. Exactly.
We wouldn't have connected with him if we weren't who we were.
Exactly.
But he wouldn't have taken his mask off, to say, hey, this is who I am.
Right.
If we were playing the game like that,
there'd never be any chance. So I guess some people that are here to do something very particular and to carry out a very specific mission, can't do it anonymously. You've got to show your face. You've got to show who you are. You've got to be who you are, and stand behind that.
Yeah. So let's take another quick break, and on the other side, I know we kind of been fucking around on this segment, but we're gonna wrap it up.
Go to the Civil War era.
That's what I want to get to.
And the early 20th century of vampirism.
I want to get to the Civil War stuff and all of that, and bring it up into a little modern vampirism kind of stuff.
Yeah, the modern stuff is really interesting too. So
yeah,
sounds good.
I've got some music here.
Yes, play something that you wrote. Aw, Danielle is in the chat. Danielle Illuminati. Cute.
It's all so fake now. Hollywood and cover girls, I need escape now. I take a trip and close my eyes. I step into the other side. Embrace the truth, reject the lies, break the programs of my mind. Will you still love me when I'm no longer under the mind control? Will you still love me when I've got nothing but my ancient soul? I know you will, I know you will, I know that you will. Will you still love me when I'm no longer mind control? Will you still love me? Will you still love me? Will you still love me when I'm no longer mind control?
Denny.
So, the destiny leads us down a dark path sometimes, and we find ourselves at a crossroads sometimes where we have to choose between something that's really difficult and something that isn't easy at all, and something that's way easier but way less fulfilling. And I think that we've chosen the right path by choosing the harder road, but the most rewarding thing we can do, which is
I always choose the right path. No, I'm serious.
is following your
Nobody knows the right path like I do.
higher self.
I know the right path.
For yourself.
Nobody knows the
anyway.
right path better than me. It's the best path. It's the only path.
Well, really, it is. Oh, and
I was watching somebody the other day that like how to impersonate Trump, and it's like you don't even have to like impersonate the voice. You just have to impersonate the cadence and like saying, this is a great show here. I came in here and I asked myself, wow, what kind of show is this? And I thought, wow, this is a very great show. I mean, this is just a great show.
this is just a great show. It's the best show that there is.
Man, I miss that guy.
I do
really
too.
do. And
I really do.
I don't trust anybody else. I'm going to be in the same position in 2024 if we get DeSantis in, where he's going to have to prove himself.
Yeah.
But, if there's anything we've learned from history is people like Trump and others like him, they're one of a kind. You can't replicate them. And so if they bring in DeSantis, I think it's going to turn into a Handmaid's Tale type of situation, leading us back to the vampire topic, which is having the cattle pretty much impends, very easily accessible.
Exactly.
Elon Musk taking over Twitter, I think, is a good thing, and I think it's going to open up free speech. However, he does have some Chinese backers. They have a minority sharehold in the company, but they're trying to go after Musk right now with the same law that Trump went after TikTok with. About having foreign-owned companies, especially as influential as TikTok and things like that. So TikTok scrambled and they rearranged their ownership to avoid that. So they're trying to do the same investigation on Musk now. But you notice how the attacks on Trump, the raid at Mar-a-Lago, that civil lawsuit with Letitia Jackson and all that was just for headlines. That's it, just for headlines.
Yeah, that was...
You don't hear anything about it anymore.
No.
There's nothing that they can get him on at all, period. So we're going to see what happens in 2024. But I think we're going to see a good move forward. And I was watching Gladiator last night. And the story of Gladiator, spoiler alert, is the General Maximus, Marcus Aurelius, was going to give Maximus control over Rome after he died, and he wanted Rome to become a republic and be for the people.
Go back to a republic, yeah.
And his son, Commachus, Commachus, or is that from History of the World? I don't remember. Anyways,
Commachus, I think, was the History of the World.
He wound up killing his father before his father was able to announce this to anybody, and so he took the crown, and that's what it was all about. In the end, they have a duel, and Rome goes back to being a republic, and the empire falls. Because empires can't sustain themselves.
No.
But that's what I see Trump as. I see Trump as giving it back to the people. And I just don't see another one who can do that.
Everyone I've seen, including DeSantis, seems like they're more focused on gathering power than they are about making sure that everybody's happy with the arrangement. And it seemed like Orange Man was more concerned with making everybody happy to a certain extent and giving the people what they want than amassing power for himself.
Well, he was going after the trafficking. He was going after the organ harvesting, which leads back to the vampire topic that we're talking about. That's also
part of it, yeah.
So let's go back to the Civil War
era.
And let's talk about that.
Okay.
Is there anything you want me to put on the screen while you're talking?
Let me see if I can.
Thank you, Danny. Much
find
love.
Something interesting for you to show while we're looking at this. The thing about vampires is that you can't really know. We can't really know what happened, say at Roanoke and places like that. But from what I understand, vampires have always been in the United States ever since Roanoke, and there have been vampires here, and they've just they fed on the natives here, the native populations, and that's part of the reason why they were put into reservations. Like you said, they wanted the cattle in their pens. They wanted all their food in one place so that they didn't have to travel far to get what they needed. And they could take out a tribe or two every couple months, and no one was really the wiser. I mean, there were so many Native Americans here in the United States when we first started taking over, and up until the Civil War even, there was still a large portion of native populations in the United States that hadn't been wiped out.
Well, it begs the question, the Anaye of the Native American tales. There was a group or beings who would come out and ask for a child. The tribe would give up a child, and it was kind of a peace agreement they had with the Anaye.
Yeah, it was a peace
They would give them a child, and the Anaye would not attack them.
Right.
And so it was an offering. And we see a repetition of human sacrifice and child sacrifice throughout many tribal cultures.
Oh, the Aztecs.
The Aztecs, of course. The Aztecs were the most brutal. The Mayans had sacrifice pits. You look in Africa, they have sacrifice pits. What are these sacrifices for? Are they really for the quote-unquote gods? Or are these some kind of reptilian, vampiric kind of beings that are asking to be fed in exchange for living in the shadows and living
Staying
peacefully.
underground, yeah.
So when this movie Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter came out, I was like, what a ridiculous concept. This is freaking stupid. This is the stupidest thing that I've ever heard of. And then I watched the movie, and as I watched the movie, a lot of it made sense. And then I look into the history, and I look into Roanoke and others, and the story with Roanoke, for people that don't know, and feel free to jump in any time, and if I'm getting ahead of myself, let me know.
Go ahead.
But Roanoke was a colony that just disappeared, and they found coffins with spikes through the heart. They found coffins with decapitated heads,
bricks in the mouth,
you know, and
all kinds of
it
things.
was said that it was a vampire colony, and that vampires were able to get on board of the ships coming over from England, and they brought vampirism over here to the States. However, did vampirism exist here in the States to begin with the Native Americans? And is that where the tales of the Anaye come from? And so when they settled over on Roanoke, perhaps they settled on a vampire colony that was already there.
It was already here
in the shadows, and they just took out the entire colony.
Right.
Or was it the other way around, where they came from overseas? Because as you mentioned, the French Revolution, they used the guillotine a lot to cut people's heads off. Why would they need to go so far as to cut people's heads off? Is it because they're dealing with something that's more than human?
Right, exactly. I think there are two branches to this, because even in the show La Revolution, it's on Netflix, about vampires and the French Revolution and those kind of being connected to one another. Apparently, they brought a girl from Haiti. They brought a girl that had this blood curse, where she bled blue. She was blue-blooded, and her blood, when you put it into a human being, it infects them with some kind of virus or some kind of bacteria, and then that virus or bacteria turns them into basically dead people that they bleed blue, and they have heightened senses, and all of this. I think there are two separate forms of vampire that came together at whenever America became America. Around that same time, you had the two types of vampire becoming one, essentially, because before the European vampires came over, they were more primitive. They stayed underground. They had an arrangement with the tribes of as far as, you give us a meal, we will make that meal last, and then you give us another meal, and that way we won't completely wipe out your tribe. We won't rule over you, but you do need to offer up that sacrifice to us.
They've always lived in the shadows.
Right, always.
They've never taken political power.
No.
They might be responsible for some of these family dynasties, but they
absolutely.
never put themselves in the front.
Never.
And the term blue blood is very interesting.
That is
I didn't
really
even know about
interesting.
this film, La Revolution, and linking it to vampires. But I know for a fact, as somebody mentioned earlier, it's predictive programming or self-disclosure to get people used to the idea of something like that existing.
Right.
And it's also to get people, you know, as I mentioned before, we start talking about this and, that's stupid, you just saw that on that movie.
Right,
you know,
exactly.
So it's a two-pronged attack. But
Yeah, it is.
the amount of people talking about it is in so many different media, it garners attention to the subject.
Right, exactly. Absolutely it does. And then you look at the Aztecs, and the whole reason why, do you know why the Aztecs got this blood ritual where they were sacrificing so many people? They believed that the gods sacrificed their own blood to create the universe. And so it was just their reciprocal exchange of and gift for the creation. So thank you for creating this beautiful land, and thank you for making us prosperous. Here's your blood.
And that's interesting, going back to Doc and Marty, which was the original incarnation of Rick and Morty. Doc would have to assault Marty in order to create a time machine portal.
Right.
So it was that ritual of the abuse and taking it on a very violent kind of way.
Right, exactly.
Which they didn't portray in the cartoon, but
of course,
you know,
but
that kind of suffering and then the blood drinking opens up portals and shifts timelines. So
12-ounce mouse.
When we went to Abydos, we were able to identify the sacrifice room immediately.
Oh, yeah.
And when we were there, nobody acknowledged blood sacrifices taking place in Egypt.
Not at all.
Shortly after we got back, sure enough, they started to acknowledge blood sacrifices in
Abydos.
In Abydos. So, knowing that, our hypothesis right off the bat, while we were in Abydos, was that there was a time machine or portals that were created. They brought in weapons from the future, and you can see these weapons up on the ceiling of Abydos. You can see Black Hawk helicopters, missiles,
it's crazy.
Things like that.
Yeah.
They're right there on the ceiling of Abydos.
Yeah, right by the doors.
And when the gods, for all intents and purposes, left, they tried to open those portals back up through human sacrifice.
Right, exactly.
And it was Seti that did it because he wanted those weapons back.
Right.
And it's interesting because our hypothesis, just reading the energy there, actually turned out to be scientific acknowledged fact.
Exactly.
A few months later after we get back.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah,
and they were trying to tell us, no, that never happened there.
We were crazy at the time.
Yeah.
And then 6 months later, they're like, oh, well, you know.
Yeah, you actually were right.
Right.
Yeah. We did find evidence of ritual sacrifice. But at first they said it was just animals. Oh, they just sacrifice animals. We were like, no.
But that explains a lot.
Yeah.
Of why there's so much ritualistic abuse. It's not a bunch of sickos
perverts. It's not just
that
a bunch
are
of perverts
doing it to get their rocks off.
Right.
These people have an intention, and what they're trying to do: shift timelines, jump dimensions, call beings from other dimensions into this dimension.
Right.
And then they came up with CERN, and that's the ultimate dimension buster there.
I think they still have to pay in blood. I think they still have to use blood to open these portals up. What do you think?
I think so too, because if you look at that presentation with the bridge opening right around CERN, there was a lot of blood sacrifice.
Yeah, it was creepy.
Depicted during that presentation. I won't play it right now, but we played it in previous.
It was creepy. Yeah,
in previous shows, and somebody mentioned Burning Man too. And that's a ritual that I don't quite understand either. A lot of people have been asking us to go to Burning Man, and it seems like a big rave. But what they do is they light a big man on fire, and that's the ritual, you know. And then you remember the movie with
like the cremation of care.
Nick Cage,
the
one where the
Wicker Man,
that's
right.
And they get the guy and they sacrifice him for better crops for the next year, and all of that. You know, these are taken out of old texts,
right,
of what they used to
folklore.
do. Yeah, folklore that's been incorporated into movies. And the purpose was for good crops,
right?
And that's a sacrifice to the gods.
The reason the Aztecs did it too.
Could it be that in some places there were actual beings? You know, you have an Aztec temple. And in that Aztec temple, you have a little cave, and inside of that cave is where the being lives, who's being fed.
Right, exactly.
But that tradition became, we're going to do this for better crops, or we're going to do this for this, or we're going to do this for that.
Exactly.
So you have many pockets where human sacrifices are taking places where there is no actual entity that's
fed. There's no
fed.
entity that's just
and they're just saying
symbolic.
It's an ethereal, symbolic thing.
Yeah.
But the core and the root of it is actually to feed some kind of entity. If I can take it a step further.
Please.
And I don't know how I feel about dinosaurs, but I can share another story from Egypt. When we were at Saqqara, I was touching the stones, and I kept seeing dinosaurs. And at that point, I was into the flat earth, and I was questioning even if time is as far back as we believe it to be. They're telling us dinosaurs existed 65 million years ago. I don't know if that's necessarily true. They could have existed a lot sooner than that, or closer to our time than that, because in Angkor Wat Temple you have a picture of a Stegosaurus, and that's from 1500 BC.
Yeah, something.
So
around there,
why would there be a Stegosaurus at Angkor Wat Temple when dinosaurs weren't discovered until the 17 or 1800s? So they might have existed, but time, it wasn't 65 million years ago. It was a lot closer. But I was under the impression at the time that they didn't exist at all, period, and it was just science making up bullshit to make the timeline seem different.
Yeah.
I mean, let's say hypothetically, as you and I were talking, you had at one point where the vampires were front and center and they were ruling everything, and they decided, you know what, we need to go back to the shadows, so we're going to create distortions in time and create false history, and you get to the phantom time theory where you have 500 years that never seem to existed within our timeline. And a lot of people speculate that it's the 1700s, but in order to confuse generations, you put in that 500-year cycle there, and then you eliminate the whole idea of vampires being up at the head of all this, and create this whole other story, like who was it, the Knights of the Round Table?
King Arthur,
Merlin, all that bullshit. And so you create all these stories, mix everything up. Even like you mentioned, King David may not have actually existed. So you create all of this to confuse everybody. But what if dinosaurs actually existed and they evolved into bipedal organisms? They evolved into more intelligent organisms. They evolved like the Morlocks of the Time Machine, live underground, and they're actually reptilian beings. And somehow the bloodlines between the reptiles and the humans were somehow mixed. And so now you have human-like vampires, and you have reptilian-like humans, and it's all just, become one jumbled big pile of shit at this point. But what if what we're actually looking at is the evolution of reptilian beings that used to exist here on Earth, which were dinosaurs, that evolved into intelligent beings who are blood drinking, and they eat meat. They eat humans.
Right.
Because they're not human. Could that be the case? I don't know. I'm just throwing several ideas out there, because the problem is there's so much conflicting information, like Angkor Wat Temple having a Stegosaurus there. What happened to the dinosaurs?
Where did they go?
Did they really get wiped out, or did they evolve into humanoids?
Humanoid reptilian entities.
Right.
Yeah. I think you might be spot on with that, especially considering how much of that DNA still is us. Like we don't realize how much of our DNA actually matches other things on this planet, and not just monkeys either. We're talking about even reptiles. I think these beings may be somewhere around 90% human, but then that 10% is that reptilian interface that they were originally with, and over time and through genetic engineering, maybe they became more and more humanoid looking, but they're really something else entirely.
I didn't even realize they made a new Predator movie, but apparently they made a movie in 2018 called The Predator.
Oh, interesting.
And you were
watch it tonight.
You were watching a clip with me.
Yeah,
remember?
I was watching that clip.
And the scientist goes down and examines a predator, and she's like, "Oh my God, this is alien technology."
You are so beautiful.
She's like, "This is alien technology," and she goes down there and she looks at it, and they hand her the DNA profile, and she's like, "This has got to be a joke." And he's like, "No, we ran the test 10 times." And she's like, "This has human DNA in it."
Yeah.
And that was the end of the clip. Obviously, there was more to the movie.
Right.
But why are they including stuff like that in modern movies? I mean, it's a bombardment.
It's putting it in your head.
It's in movies. It's the Netflix series, multiple Netflix series. The Strain, the La Revolution.
Keep saying it everywhere.
Who would think? You tell me you want to sit down and watch La Revolution, and I'd be like, no. But if you tell me you want to watch this, it's got vampires in it, I'd be like, hell yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
But who would think that they would mix the two together? Like, that makes no sense.
Right.
It makes just as much sense as Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter.
Exactly. And it even opens up new avenues of thinking, because this guy, for instance, he turns into a vampire. Just spoiler alert, by the way. His father actually turns him into one of these vampire creatures, and injects him with this blue blood. And the reason why he does so is because his son has gangrene. He has gangrene of his leg. His mother also had this condition where you get infections really easily and stuff. He's got half of his leg missing, and he was trying to walk, and his leg just snaps in half. And it's obviously a horrible life for this poor kid. And so this kid, maybe 19 years old, the guy kills him and then injects him with the blue blood. He comes back to life, and he turns into the most rotten, most horrible person that you've ever seen, after being such a sweet kid that had all these problems with pain. But because they injected him with this stuff, it gave him the ability to rule over others. It gave him strength, super speed, super awareness in all of his senses. And unfortunately, with some people that are damaged, that are traumatized, that have gone through a lot in their life, and they haven't been able to really get over anything, if you put those kinds of things into a reptilian mindset, or somebody that's traumatized to the point where they're more reptile than human, they will turn into that. And we see that over and over and over again.
It reminds me of a very famous quote from an ancient philosopher. Sometimes dead is better.
Sometimes dead is better. Yep.
Shout out to anybody that gets the reference. Okay, so let's move it along, because we're already at 3 hours and 11 minutes.
So when the Civil War was over and done with, you had something called the Red Cross. The American Red Cross.
Well, hold on. Let's back up for a second.
Okay,
because
please.
Don't you have some information about Ulysses S. Grant?
Oh, Ulysses S. Grant. Now, I can't seem to find it now, but I've got it in my timeline somewhere, and I will find it, that Ulysses S. Grant, after the Mexican-American War in 1848, after that was over and done with in 1850, he actually became a vampire hunter and actually had his own regiment of vampire slayers that were in the Southwest, especially in the Southwest, and they would go to where people had said vampires were hiding out, and they would smoke them out. They would kill them.
Let me go to a clip real quick.
Yeah, please.
Check this out, ladies and gentlemen. This is you tell me what you think of this. You may have seen this, you may have not, but you tell me what you think of this. This is legit, okay? It could be just ornamental, but the materials that they used to construct it doesn't really say novelty.
Yeah. Doesn't say it's a joke.
Yeah. Okay. So the rest is kind of immaterial, but
yeah, it just goes to show. Well, actually, you know what? I think
this guy goes and he goes into detail as to what it's made out of.
People are very serious.
Well, yeah. Obviously, that's the thing.
Yeah, it was a thing.
And there's silver bullets in there. Mm-hmm. Everything's made of silver. It's not a movie prop. It's not anything like that.
Yeah, it was actually put together.
This was actually put together to kill vampires.
Yeah, no joke.
The only question is, are vampires real or not? If you look around the time period, even going back to the Civil War, you've got, go ahead, please.
Well, you've got the evidence is pretty striking. Whenever I was looking at this and really researching this, I was deep diving into the different letters that he was writing around that time and the different stories that people were telling, and it really did seem like there were pockets of vampires that didn't want to play nice, didn't want to stop doing what they were doing, and were making it very difficult for homesteaders and settlers to settle in those lands safely, because they would attack them and kill entire families and wipe out all these people traveling in wagons. Because remember this, people were traveling in wagons around that time to the west, and they were settling in different places and building their little roads and their little towns. And Grant was told, because he was a general at that time, that this is a big problem. We need to do something about this. And so he accepted the charge, and it was because he accepted the charge and because he was so ruthless against these vampires that that was part of the reason why he became president later during the Reconstruction period after the Civil War, because the Civil War did bring everybody back together to fight against each other. But I think at some point they realized, okay, well, not only do we need to wrap this up and make sure that, we're one country again, we also need to make sure that the vampire issue doesn't become an issue anymore.
I just had an idea.
What's up?
Okay, hear me out on this.
Okay.
You have slavery at the time.
Mm-hmm.
You have plantations.
Mm-hmm.
What better way for vampires to keep a food supply,
right,
and also make money at the same time?
I've heard
than
that.
a plantation.
I've heard that.
So
yeah,
you have this fight, Civil War,
mm-hmm,
as illustrated in Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter. It was about getting rid of the vampires. It was it was a war against the vampires.
Right.
That's why they commandeered all this silver to make silver bullets. Okay, so now, at this point where you have all these Netflix shows talking about vampires and everything like that, what do you have? You have BLM trying to wipe out all history about the Civil War.
Right.
Even going so far as to knocking down statues of Abraham Lincoln. Trying to erase that history as if it never happened.
Yeah, completely.
Why are they trying to erase that history so badly? I mean, I understand it could be offensive to some people. Me personally, as part native, I don't find any offense in anything that happened centuries ago. It's part of history. Greek, we were enslaved by the Turks for 400 years.
Right.
I wasn't alive back then. I don't take any offense to it whatsoever.
Exactly.
So I've got two parts of myself that were enslaved. The Italians were enslaved by the Mongols, or I don't remember who it was, but that's how the Sicilians came to be. So anyways, all three of my ancestry, all either wiped out or enslaved at one point in time.
Right, exactly.
I don't care. Okay, I'm not connected
it
to this.
Doesn't offend you.
It doesn't offend me. It doesn't bother me.
Exactly.
Now, I can't speak for everybody out there, but I can speak for myself and say that it doesn't bother me. As a matter of fact, I am offended that they would take down the Land O'Lakes native. I'm offended that they would take down the Washington Redskins, because that was an art made by their chief, by their tribe, to honor their chief, and the tribe was getting royalties for use of that image. So anyways, they're trying to wipe out that whole idea of slavery and that entire time period of slavery. Is it because perhaps the vampires are making a move right now? They want that erased so they can go back to what that was before.
Right.
Where they have their own little feeding areas. Because this ties into the Red Cross. And you would tie this in, right at this time the Red Cross was formed. And if they made a truce with the vampires, then the Red Cross is for feeding the vampires. But as I've said before, when we've talked about vampires, there's a sect that is like, no, we don't want to eat. It's like that Jurassic Park line. It doesn't want to be fed, it wants to hunt. If you were a vampire, wouldn't you get tired of drinking frozen blood? Wouldn't you want it fresh from the tap every once in a while? I mean, take fruit, for example. Can you eat canned fruit for the rest of your life? Or at some point, would you want to go pick a fruit off a tree?
Right.
What do you think about that tie in there? This just came to mind just now. It's a little out there. I don't have anything to back it up, but when the dots that you're connecting, is making me think in that dynamic.
It rings true, and it rings true to the extent that if Abraham Lincoln did have anything to do with the vampire situation, it would make sense that he would then support Grant. I mean, it would make sense that his supporters would then support Grant after Lincoln, because Grant did so much good work getting rid of the vampires, that they're like, hey, he's the ultimate anti-vampire guy. So let's put him in power, in office. And I think what ended up happening was maybe they realized, okay, this is way too big for us to handle or to, completely wipe out. There's no way to wipe this out. This is such a big problem that we have to mitigate it. Rather than trying to eliminate it, let's try to mitigate it. So they started giving them the blood from the Red Cross. And that's why the Red Cross even started, was because you had a whole population of vampires that you wanted to keep quiet, you wanted to keep them under control. Here you go, give them blood. And then over time, they started getting tired of that. And now they're sick and tired of it. They want their own plantations again, blood plantations, basically. And they want them back.
That makes sense.
It would make total sense.
And that makes sense of FEMA camps. That makes sense of CCP style lockdowns. That makes sense of the way that they treated Australia.
Oh, the way they treated us whenever we tried to walk on the beach by ourselves.
Right.
You know, how dare this slave be not in his pen?
Yeah, and you get a self-policing system.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't it George Soros that was rounding up Jews for the camps?
Yep.
I don't want to use the N-word because that's one that they flag. But he says he was rounding up Jews.
Yeah.
And he said, well, if I didn't do it, somebody else would.
Right.
As he was rounding up his own people.
Mm-hmm.
And so we saw that in 2020 as well.
Yeah.
People all rounding each other up.
And calling the authorities because, you know, your neighbor doesn't have their mask on when they walk outside.
Right.
You know? Just crazy, crazy stuff that went on in 2020 makes me very nervous about the possibility of that happening, because we know from experience that if the public is scared enough, they'll do whatever they tell them.
Why is there such a blood shortage?
Exactly.
Why are they always like, donate blood, donate blood, donate blood? Why is there this endless supply of blood donations?
Right, exactly. And why do they, I mean, I when you tell them your blood type, they start salivating. Why is that? I don't understand what the big need is for this. If more people are donating blood every year, you know, because you've got more and more awareness of it, people are donating blood. That's fantastic. But why is there always a shortage? And why is it such a shortage that they ask you to donate every time there's any kind of mass, you know, death, mass casualty event, anytime there's any kind of terror attack, even if it has nothing to do with blood, they ask for blood.
You know what's interesting is I saw a Reddit post about this, and this is something that I've speculated on for quite some time, but it's interesting to see others who have come to this conclusion independently and before me too. Which affirms that I'm not just thinking crazily. Other people are also making these connections, and they're making them before me. So it's not like they're listening to me say this and then going out and making these connections. Vampires have infiltrated the Red Cross. As it turns out, they're super good at coordinating blood drives, and the gains offset the losses. What are your thoughts? I'm gonna go through the comments here on Reddit, but just the fact that people are posting this in 2015, 4 years ago.
Oh wow!
Well, it says 4 years ago. I thought it's a 2015.
Oh okay. This is from 2020. Vampires and blood trafficking. The International Red Cross.
Send me the link.
It's crazy. Yeah, people are definitely thinking this.
Others are thinking that too.
Dynamic.
So we're not just freaking nuts here.
Yeah, we're not crazy. It's just, you know, what is going on with this?
Is it this last link you sent?
No, I'm sending it right now. It just wouldn't let me copy it for some reason. There you go. The International Red Cross, William Schneider from Indianapolis wrote this, and it says,
Vampire blood trafficking, the International Red Cross campaign against third world plasma collection in the 1970s. Oh, okay.
Yeah, one of the cornerstones of WHO blood safety program. This is talking about the blood safety program, and the question of paid versus voluntary donation of blood dates back to the 1920s, when the Red Cross first became involved in transfusion thanks to Percy Oliver's work at a neighborhood branch division in London. He, responding to a call from a local hospital for blood transfusion donors, Oliver appealed to chapter members. Based on the response, he organized a list of potential donors, quote, on demand, pre-tested for blood type, and screened to prevent transmission of disease. This soon became a model for other, but not all, countries. By the mid-1950s, these products were in such demand that for-profit blood banks were started in the United States, where donors were paid for whole blood that went to hospitals, as well as plasma sold to drug companies whose most important product was gamma globulin to treat diseases. The immediate causes prompting new blood policies. So Let me
hold
get
on. I don't mean to stop the show. I don't know if Emma Hawkins is still around. I know it's late where she's
there's
at.
a little segment.
But no, it's a little
Oh,
Bastet.
a little Bastet? Oh.
Yeah. She came to say hello to M. Hawkins.
Yeah, there's Bastet.
Hi, M. Hawkins. How are you? Look how big they've gotten. Oh, my God. M. Hawkins is their godparents. Their godmother. We need to go down and visit M. Hawkins.
Yeah,
so
we
they can
need
meet
to.
him.
Yeah, because she's
if
their
anything happens
godmother.
to us, she's what did I say? Godfather.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, she's the godmother.
She's the godmother. Yeah. So they need to meet. But anyways, okay.
So yeah, I think other people are thinking the same dynamic, even if they're not willing to think of it as actual vampires. They're thinking of it in terms of these people are getting blood.
And there's Sekhmet.
For
I didn't even realize this. Sekhmet is sleeping on the cat tree.
Yeah, she is.
Hold on, let me see if I can give M. Hawkins a little glimpse. I don't know if
you can
see
barely
her
see
on the
her.
cat tree.
She's just passed out.
But that's the cat tree you bought for him. So yeah.
Yeah, that's their cat tree. Yeah. They're happy with it, and they've enjoyed it ever since.
M. Hawkins bought that one.
She bought that for them. Yeah,
that's the one we've replaced the one we bought for him several times, but that one's special. And you know what's funny is they don't scratch this one up. The other one they scratch the shit. This one, it's almost like they know, like it came from somewhere else, and so they're very.
Yeah, they're saying in 1941, vampires successfully infiltrated the Red Cross and started collecting blood. Many years later, they are no longer parasites, now in a mutually beneficial relationship with humanity. While bringing cookies to a nursing home, you lock eyes with a former vampire hunter. No, but seriously, though, I do think that this is more true than not. That article wasn't talking about real vampires, but it's talking about the vampiric nature of what they're doing to people. I do think that it's wrong what they're doing with the plasma. They take advantage of people that are already poor. They're already disenfranchised. They're already really, really nutritionally deficient. If they're selling their plasma for money, they're probably not eating healthy. They're probably on the lower end of the income spectrum, and so you're taking from people who are already suffering in a sense, and using their plasma to give to. I think some of it does go to gamma globulin, yes, but I think a large majority of the blood that's donated is going to vampires, and they've wanted more and more and more, and it's almost like an addiction where they want more every year, and there's just not that product available.
Well, I can say this for sure. There's too many people talking about this for it to just be some kind of kooky thing
idea
that, because people are coming to these conclusions independently of one another. Mm-hmm. And then the bombardment of mainstream media. When I say mainstream media, I'm not talking about news. I'm talking about Netflix and things like that. Mm-hmm. And the soft disclosure. There's something there. There's something to it.
There's something to all of this. If so many people are getting these thoughts and worrying about this and thinking about this and mulling this over, there's something to it. I believe in collective
look at a couple
consciousness.
places. North Korea, open air prison.
Yep.
Gaza, open air prison.
Yeah, these are open air prisons.
Ukraine. Weren't they talking about Ukraine?
Mm-hmm.
Ukraine is a bunch of neo N-A-Z eyes. For some reason, YouTube doesn't like that word.
They don't like that word. Yeah.
But the Dems are funding all of them. Mm-hmm. And even Putin was like, hey, these are those people. But Ukraine is like an open air prison. And I seem to remember reading a story, watching a YouTube video just recently about how there's a place in Ukraine that's basically like a cattle farm for humans.
It is. There's this place where they literally took women's babies away from them, and this is back in the 80s, I think it was. They told the people that their babies died, when in reality they took the babies and sold them for parts or sold. I mean, I know that there were instances where there was one case of a little girl that was from Africa that was taken to the UK in order to harvest her organs. No joke. And that there was this big upset about this, and it really drew attention to the whole illegal organ harvesting thing. But that happens a lot. What people don't realize is that there's a connection here between like pig farms in the United States, the underground body circuit, body donation farms, all these things interlock together in a sense, and they all point towards one thing, and that's that we have vampires that whether it's energetically through causing them pain and torment while you're torturing them before you kill them, or whether we're talking about literal vampires that do the same thing except physically. Either way, it's creating this massive amount of energy, which is what CERN needs in order to open these portals. So whether you want to look at it from the direction of energetically, or whether you want to look at it from the perspective of physically, it's both leading to the same conclusion, which is we have a serious vampire problem. And it's worldwide at this point. Ukraine is the biggest supplier of stem cells as well, which would make sense if you were looking at a population that has been exposed to pretty moderate to a lot compared to us of radiation. Their babies have been born with, it's really interesting. It's like this radiation resistance to a certain degree, and I think that's why they take stem cells from them. What do you think?
I think that
because they're the biggest supplier of stem cells in the world.
Well, I think
Ukraine.
first of all, the amount of notes and research that you've done have not been justified on this show. You have so much more that we haven't gone over.
I have a lot.
And your notes are so extensive.
It's very extensive.
That I think we need to start doing. I love doing these conversations.
Me too.
Because number one, it's fun. Number two, we get to interact with our tribe. Number three, they're very easy to do because we can talk.
Yeah.
But I think we need to start doing some videos about, like 5 to 10 minute videos where we're doing actual YouTube videos.
Yeah.
Maybe start another channel or something like that. I just want to give a big shout out to Girls 18.
I know. I was just about to get rid of that.
Who's in the chat. Find love on the best dating sites. Sheree and I actually met at girls18.online. And I'm so glad that they're visiting the chat room because their website is just so amazing.
That's so awesome.
And you can really find true love with girls that are 18.online. So be sure to visit them.
That's so dumb. I mean, yeah, we met on the internet, but we met doing what we love, and we met doing something we're passionate about, not going to girls18.online. Wow. Thanks, dude.
That's funny.
It's awesome.
All right, so should we wrap it up?
Yeah, let's.
Okay. I hope that we have done justice to the information. I feel like we haven't because your notes are so much more extensive.
So much more extensive than this, but...
I don't know if you want, but for our Patreons, maybe you want to attach the notes to the show so they can see all the notes firsthand. Or if you want to hold those notes, we can make videos,
I think
in actual video format.
And I think we should make video format.
Fair enough.
And then at that point, then I can post the notes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the next question is, we are at 3 hours and 37 minutes. I don't know how much of it I'm going to cut for YouTube and how much I'm going to keep on Patreon, but I know that we owe our Patreons a lot.
A lot of material.
Because we have been absent for a while, so we need to get our Patreons some exclusive content.
Yes, because we love you.
Patreon.com/BTVTribe is the website. I have a video that you haven't seen yet that... is about The Shining, and that video about The Shining talks about the idea that Wendy is hallucinating a lot of this. Now, there is somebody who's come out and debunked it. and he was asked to be in that film Room 237, but he chose not to because of so many different conspiracies around The Shining and the real meaning of The Shining.
Right.
However, I don't know why he took it so seriously. Like, you're a Shining researcher, and like, I'm going to find the real meaning of The Shining. And it's like, it's open to interpretation. That's what the beauty of it is. But he's like, I don't want to be involved with that disinformation. So he's come out and he supposedly debunked the Wendy theory. But I think the Wendy theory is really fascinating. The video itself is about 40 minutes. The person that put it together is did it with an AI voice, which I think was kind of cheap.
Yeah.
But what I think would be fun, if you feel like it, is to watch that video for our Patreons and go through it and pick apart The Shining and talk about the Wendy theory. If we do that, the video itself is 40 minutes and it's worth the watch in its full entirety. But we pause it, and so we're probably looking at about another hour and a half if we want to do that. Do you feel like doing that?
I do, and I would love to. And if that's what you want to do tonight, we can do that. Okay.
Do you want to do that?
Sure.
Okay. Anish, thank you for the super chat. Much love, brother. Nice to see you. We've had some things going on over the past couple of weeks, but we are back.
Yeah, we are back in the saddle. Not going anywhere.
Okay, so question. Do we want to end the stream for YouTube, restart it? It should notify everybody. And then, go over that so we have a separate video for our Patreons?
Yeah, I think that would be...
Or should we just keep on going?
I think it's going to cut us off at 4 hours anyway, right?
No.
Oh, no. Okay, it doesn't do that anymore.
No. But I think we should do that.
I think we should do that,
So everybody listening, you're going to get another notification here in just a second with a new video link. And we'll do The Shining... the Shining stuff specifically for our Patreons, but for people watching live, you'll be able to catch it live. So on that note, kiss the one you love right now. You never know when the last time is going to be. I'm going to run the outro, stop the stream, restart the stream. You'll get another notification, and we will pick it up with the Shining and the Wendy theory, which I think is phenomenal. So anything else?
Nope, just we love you guys,
right.
And
love you, and see you even further beyond the veil. And
the veil.
Don't forget, if you're listening live, stay tuned. We've got more coming up. It's just going to be on a different stream. So if for some reason you don't get the notification, go to youtube.com/beyond the veil, and you'll see the live, which is going to take me about 2 or 3 minutes to set up after this stream is down. So love you, and
you guys.
we'll see you in a minute. Hey everyone, Chris Gio here. Just wanted to remind you that if you're watching on YouTube, you're probably getting a condensed version of the show. A link is going to pop up here on the left, taking you straight to patreon.com/BTV Tribe, where you can get the full shows. It's as little as $3 a month. And the reason is it helps us to overcome the YouTube censorship, the shadow banning, and also stay in touch with our BTV Tribe. See you there.